Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are on a big, beautiful blue planet. Welcome to the Authors Quill. I hope y'all are having a good day out there in the world. I mean, I know this show goes out to about 160 countries, so.
We need your face, Joe. We need your face.
Oh, my face ain't on? Okay, well, hold on. Oh, there we
There we go.
There you go.
Now we can get scary kind of stuff going on. So, out there, guys, I know, and I know we picked a bunch of new service. So we're in Jakarta and a couple other places. Sri Lanka's been interested in seeing people go out there, and Brazil's always interested. San Pablo actually is where we're in Brazil. So we've always been in the countries, but usually different cities. Now this company we got with puts us in all these large cities. The smallest city they put us in was 25 million. I think Jakarta's like 44 million. So they added the extra 300 million potential listeners to the network.
Wow.
We'll say potential. Well, because I'm just amazed when I see that many non-speaking English people on the servers. It always cracks me up to see that. I mean, because Europeans, most of them speak English or half but speak English, but you start getting into the Asian countries and further down to Africa, but at least not all of them speak English. So it's just cool to see it. Even in South America, they don't all speak English, so it's kind of nice. I know in South America, well, actually in Argentina, they have a listening. They have a guy who translates the shows. So they play the show live, and he translates the show live while it's going on. It's just crazy that people do that kind of stuff. Plus, we're still elevated music in what three buildings in California, one in Chicago, and one in New York. Can you imagine hearing my voice in the elevator? It's gotta be great. It's gotta be great. I'd pay money to hear it drive people crazy. Gene, welcome. We're going to be. We have Preston on with us. We have Meghan O with us, and we're going to be talking about a few things. Now, somebody told me Meghan is a writer and an illustrator, or was I hearing things?
No, she's one of the 4 or 5 people in the history of the contest.
Oh, so you're a double winner.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
This is the first time you've interviewed a double winner.
I know. I was thinking that too. Just like royalty here, man.
She's serious royalty.
So now I get to pick on some of my favorites who are trying to do both. There's a couple of them out there we know that are working really hard. I could do both. Yeah. It's so I mean, so how'd you get? I mean, what was it? I mean, what did you start out first? Is what I should ask you. Were you writing, illustrating?
I was actually entering the writers first, and I started getting honorable mentions. And then I had a friend that was like, "You need to do the illustrator too." So one of the first times I even entered it, boom, won. So I got illustrators.
See, illustrators are lucky like that. Authors are not. Illustrators are lucky like that. I've seen a lot of.
I'd like to pose a concept that it's not luck, it's skill that.
I don't know, man. I think it's a little bit of both because. You got to hit it at the right time. You don't know who. Because I mean, first off, you're going up against a lot of people, so it's all about the batch you get put into if you're going to shine out of that batch or not. So there's a little luck involved too.
I'm not going to take nothing away from her skill and her ability to win.
Well, no, but I know people who authors usually win past the number of 14. There's someone earlier than, but most of them at that or further back. Illustrators, most of the illustrators I talk to, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, boom. Matter of fact, I haven't talked to anybody past 3 years in a while now. I'm gonna go back to COVID.
I told John that he needs to do a Composers of the Future because I don't enter that one.
That would be good.
Yeah, so I did illustrators back in 2011, and the writers was 2012. So it was like, as far as I know, unless John has updates, I'm the first and only woman to win both contests and the first person to do it in back-to-back years. So it was just like, boom, one right after another. And then I got to go to Hollywood 2 more times after that. So I've been in Hollywood, 4 times? 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah. Two as the winner, and then they invited me back as a bridge person to help between the judges and the winners. So some, especially with the illustrators, are kind of shy. So they'll see like their star that they've admired.
I work on the illustrators from day one. So when I get them in LA, I can actually get something out of. Usually the first interview is like, okay.
I'm really shy.
There's a few of them that have been particularly shy, but what's been really nice is since we started the thing when we bring on 4 at a time so they all get to meet each other.
Yeah.
It's made it easier and they feel more comfortable. So and that allows me to pick on them, which brings them out of their shell. And because, they feel the need to stand up for themselves. And so I've seen a lot of them come out of shell. There's still a few that left shy, but most of the ones like last year, everybody was, all right, I'm the boss. I have come. I have conquered. I'm on my way home now. And it's always good to talk to them after the win because, you get to hear, they finally got home. They've settled down. It's still rushing over their head, but it's still fresh in their memory.
They're also really young too. They tend to be really young. I remember I was like one of the oldest people. I was like 30.
The illustrators, yeah.
The illustrators are really young.
The illustrators. The authors though tend to be, most of the authors I interviewed were in their 40s. So okay, let me retract it. So with writers in the future, I'd say most of the illustrators are late 30s, mid 40s. For the network though, I actually pushed that a little further back, maybe 48, 49, 50. Because we do a lot of authors on the network. I mean, there's a lot of authors coming. I'm sure Preston interviews a lot of authors by itself, and then there's several other of us hosts that do authors. So we get a. What was that, Preston?
I was definitely one of the older ones in my year, but I noticed last year there was quite a few older folks, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, it is,
and I love that the contest being anonymous. The judges don't know.
Yes, they removed your name.
You just cannot tell how old the person is going to be, what sex, or anything about them. It's amazing. And by the way, Megan, I was there both years. You won, watching from the audience. What I call the losers' lounge.
Oh no! No.
I eventually got up there on stage, but man,
you sure did. And everybody was in tears your year, Preston. With your story, everybody in the whole audience was in tears.
Yeah, I had a good backstory to winning. But I just want to say, Megan, while I have the chance, your story, The Siren, was that one and Gerald Warfield's The Polly Islands, my 2 favorite stories.
Yes, that was volume 28.
Yeah.
So the illustrator, when I won, that was in volume 27, and then the writers was in volume 28. Yeah, there was a good crowd there with some of the winners. So. Yeah, I got second place in my quarter, and that's when that was the year before Dave Farland became the coordinating judge again. Yeah. But he was on the final panel for choosing my story, and he took me aside. He's like, "I voted for yours to be number 1." I mean, he really liked the premise and everything, and for anybody who doesn't know, I mean, like Dave Farland has passed away, but he was a greenlighter for Scholastic. So when the marketing company came to him and they were like, "Hey, who should we push big this year for all the authors that we've purchased?" And they gave him a big box, he says, and him and his wife, I know Mary, she's very sweet. Apparently they were just reading through it, and he goes, "Harry Potter." And they're like, "No, that's too old for its audience. It's not." And he's like, "No, Harry Potter." So he like literally greenlighted J.K. Rowling in America. And he found like Stephanie Meyer, Twilight, Brandon Mull, Fablehaven, Brandon Sanderson. That's Mistborn series. He's got a lot of the big names that have made it onto the silver screen and everything. Like he finds them, and he was like, "Yeah, I voted for your story to be number 1," and he had no idea who I was at that point. So I was like, "Wow, that's a huge honor." Yeah.
Very cool.
So one thing that's great about this is like Preston, you entered. Was it 47? I mean, your story is amazing. The Topanga Canyon story. Joe, can we take a few minutes for him to tell his Topanga Canyon story?
We got plenty of time.
Okay, good.
It's somewhat of a dubious honor being, I think, the person who's had the most entries before winning, but I'll take it. It's an honor.
Hey, winning is winning, Preston.
But yeah, I mean, as a young man, that's all I ever wanted to do was write science fiction. It was from like the late 1980s, 88 to about 92. I entered 12 times and received 12 straight rejections. It was heartbreaking. And I ended up dropping out of even trying to write science fiction. I was writing nonfiction at that time and being really successful at it. But I had pretty much all the authors from, Asimov to Zelazny. my rooms was filled with science fiction. I sold all of them except the Writers of the Future books, because I just had this feeling that I could win the contest. It was almost like this psychic intuitive thing. So I boxed them up and I put them in the closet, and I'm like, well, maybe one day. And years go by, like 20 years or something, and I realized, you know what? I'm going to miss out on my dream of being a science fiction writer if I don't do something. So I started entering again. Well, first I looked up to see if the contest was still being, operating. And of course it was. So I was very excited. I bought all the volumes, started reading them and entering, and got quite a few rejections until I got my first honorable mention. And I thought, you know what? I need another. And kept entering and started really racking up the honorable mentions, but was kind of blocked from getting any further than that. And so I went to the Writers of the Future forum, which I love.
Yes. That's a good space.
Yeah. I learned more there than in college. Honestly, about how to write, about, hooks and titles and plotting and all the stuff that goes into writing. It's more than you might think. But at any rate, I'm going through the forums, and there was one about not giving up, the importance of not giving up. I'm like, oh God, well, this is kind of up my alley, because I did give up. And I was starting to feel discouraged again. And I'm coming upon one of these threads that says, don't worry, I'll never give up. I've heard the Topanga Canyon story. And I got kind of cold chills, because that's where I lived. I was living in Topanga Canyon when I gave up. And I was getting really good feedback from editors, like Dean Wesley Smith, one of the judges at Pulp House magazine. Long story short, I'm like, okay, what's this Topanga Canyon story? Because I had no idea about this. Turns out Dean Wesley Smith, one of the winners, of course, and one of the judges, had a workshop that he taught about the importance of not giving up, and had this cautionary tale about this anonymous guy called Topanga Canyon, who he said was pretty much at the finish line. That editors were looking at him, book editors, magazine editors, everyone was wondering who was going to be the first to publish his story, and he disappeared. Of course, I emailed Dean and asked him, I think this might be about me. And he, of course, verified it, which was both devastating, really, and super exciting. There's got to be a word for that. I don't know what it is.
I know. There is somewhere. I'm sure there's somewhere in the dictionary.
Let me know if you find it. I was thrilled, and yet I was so upset to realize, you know what? I dropped out right when I was that close. But that's what I needed. I got the encouragement to keep entering, and I finally got a finalist. And when I got that finalist call, I had another vision. I'm like, I'm going to win second place. I know I am. Yeah. But I didn't sleep for about, a week and a half or 2 weeks, whatever it took, till Joni called me. I was at work. I screamed. My boss came running. He's like, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing's wrong. I'm just going to need a week off next year, because it was the first quarter. So I had to wait a whole year.
Oh, no.
That was so cool. I mean, it was the best.
Oh, wait. Weren't we on COVID year or something?
No, it was just before that.
Oh, okay.
So I got lucky in that regard.
Yes, because I know COVID kind of slowed everybody down a little bit. Because when I met John, that was the first year back. They were doubling up that year, and it was insanity, is what it was.
But
it amazed me that they kept track of it.
Took me to win.
Yeah, that's racking up some tries. Hey, well, we've actually talked about that. I think on the chat, one of the guys were talking about it, and I said, no. I said, Preston took a while to win. I said, but he won. And I said, in the end, that's what matters, is that you won. It's part of the thing. So some things I learn fast and quick, and I can catch on. And some things it's like just I have to beat myself in it. Writing is not something I can do.
I'd see people who won on their first try. I'd be like, what the heck?
Yeah, I know.
No. You raised a really good point there, Preston, because it is judged blind. I mean, they remove your name to facilitate fair judging. So it's not about who you know. And you can enter at least 4 times a year, because there's 4 quarters, and it just gives you the encouragement to keep going. And even when I was writing on the writer's side and entering, I was I'm actually glad. I'm glad that I got 2 rejections. So it did show that, it's about the writing and not like this is some easy thing that someone can win. I was getting a lot of honorable, well, I guess you can kind of see them over there, like a whole wall of honorable mentions and stuff. But I, at the time, I don't know if anybody's done this yet, but at the time, the Siren, I entered it straight rejection. I sat on it for 2 years, and just like you, I was like, there's something about this story that is so up the alley of writers of the future, and I just distanced myself from it, came back to it cold 2 years later, and was like, oh, I just axed a little front portion that wasn't working, like a little intro, and then I rearranged a couple scenes. That's literally all I did with it. Like maybe some technical editing. That's it. Like it wasn't even some kind of a major revision, but that's what it needed. And then it went straight to the finalist and then won. So
yeah, I noticed that in the forum, people would send stories over, and I'd be like, take off the first 2 pages, 3 pages. That's usually a person's story starts. What do they call it? On media res. Start with the action.
Yes.
That was another.
Yes.
thing
Well, if you want to, we talk about that in the show all the time. You only got X amount of time to hook the reader. If you, the judges reading, and these are professional judges who write themselves with. I mean, come on, someone's got big movies to their name, so
yeah.
You're not going to be able to spend 3, 4, 5 pages warming them up, because by the 4th page or 3rd page, it's going to be like on to the next book.
Yeah, that's why it was very. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's why it's so meaningful when you can go from a straight rejection to like winning a whole contest with a piece of writing, because it shows the process and what you had to do to get there. And sometimes it's not even like a whole revision, like my point was earlier. It's just like a little bit of a rearranging of the text or something, and you got to believe in yourself. That's like the big thing. It's like I just can't shake this notion. And at the time, like the Siren, this is the first time that I could probably ever actually talk about what it's for real about, like where the inspiration actually came from. Because at the time, it wasn't that people weren't ready. Like they say, certain demographics of people aren't ready for disclosure or anything like that. Mine was more like, I don't know if I have the context to even be able to describe to people and bridge that gap of where this is coming from. So whenever I would be on like a radio show, or I did the Syracuse Bridge Street show when I first won it. And I kind of just stuck to like the basic plot of it, which is cool. Like the plot is cool. And I think it was Martin L. Shoemaker who told me he was reading the story, and he's like, I was halfway through and I almost dropped my tablet because I realized where you were going with it. So it does have like, plot twists and that kind of thing, but to actually be able to talk about what it's really about, I can do that here now on this podcast. So that's why I was like, yes.
It's nice to be able to get things out and talk about them. Because it's funny, because a lot of the authors we meet here are ex-military or well, some of them are. I've been. Where are we at now, John? 4 or 5 interrogators. I think it's 5 now, actually.
Wow.
So and look, one of these girls like this big. I'm like, what? When I met her in person, she's like, no, I'm an interrogator. I said, who are you scaring? She said, trust me, Joe, I'm scary. I said, I bet you are. But they use all of that pent up anger and energy and fear and frustration, and they turned it into books. And I've been quite impressed with that. I mean, it's got to be like therapy for them. Poor John, we keep John muted.
A lot of writers are tortured souls a little bit.
Well, I think that's true.
Therapy.
Yeah, but I think you're right, though. I think in some ways, and because we're involved in ufology too, so I meet a lot of these writers. And they are. I mean, it's a passion, it's a love, and it's a pain all at the same time. And of course, you're your own worst critic most of the time. So you always should let other people read your book, people.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Hand it to someone else to read.
When I finish a story, I'm like, oh, this is a masterpiece. And then I read it again. I'm like, oh, this is a pile of.
Yes.
Immediately hand it to someone else.
Actually, it's pretty good. It's funny. Before I won, I had 4 straight rejections in a row. So I'm looking at my story. I'm like, you know what? I know this is a good idea. And I know Writers of the Future
Mhm.
loves stories with unique ideas that
Mhm.
you haven't
It's
heard
true.
before.
Yes.
And that's what I love about, I've read all the volumes. It's absolutely a passion of mine. I probably know the Writers of the Future stories better than just about anybody out there. It's like your story, Megan, I've read at least 3 times.
Oh, thanks.
It's fresh each time.
That's so cool.
But
I
I had
mean-
no idea that mine was going to win or not. You just don't know. It's
What volume were you in, Preston?
35. Right
Oh,
there.
okay.
It's
Yeah.
on the
So
table.
I was like,
It's
Yeah.
So next time, Preston, when you send in some artwork, just be sure to mail Emily some chocolate. Okay, shh, just don't tell John. Just mail Emily some chocolate. I'm telling you, y'all got to know how to grease the wheel here. No, Bruce. Emily is. Just say she's Emily. Leave it at that. She's the boss. She's one of the bosses.
She's the boss.
She's the. Actually, technically, half the time she's the ghost. She's like the phantom walking in and out late in the evenings and stuff.
yes.
Yeah.
No, it's John's wife. Actually, no, she's a sweetheart.
Yeah, she
How
is.
she
Emily is
puts up. I don't even know how she has the patience of it. Some of them people might be like, "What? Go home." I'm like, no. Actually, the whole bunch of them got really true because they can put up with me, which is tough. It's they really are a patient group. I rarely see anybody even get a wrinkle on their face. It's rare to hear anything that's not exactly positive all the time. Poor Joni, I don't know how Joni does it.
Joni, man, she must have clones. That's why I say Joni has clones. She's everywhere. But I mean, something that people don't know about my situation, I was like John knows, but I was in a very violent domestic violence situation at the time when I went to the contest. Like people don't know that. Like I was actually literally covered in bruises up my back when I went out there. And so Joni, bless her soul, and Dave Farland, they were in a private update group while I was fleeing the state of Texas. We were in Texas at that time and I was going to New York State. Like and I wanted to put people whose opinions that I really trusted, like, I could have put like friends and family, like regular friends and family, but I was like, you know what? I want to hold myself accountable because I don't want to do something in the moment that would be, it seemed wise, but it was not. And I didn't want to like let them down. So there was, I think like Brad Torgerson was in there, Jordan Lape, and Dave Farland and Joni Labick was in the group, and they were on a blow by blow as I was fleeing the state. And I just felt really supported in knowing that I can make good decisions like in a crisis like that. And that was going on like when I wrote this book. And what's even crazier is right before it, between 2008 and 2009, because I won in like 2011 for illustrators. This is where it's good that you guys are into ufology, because I never actually really was. Not that I wasn't interested, I just didn't follow the crowd very much. So you are going to be able to verify some of the stuff that I'm talking about. But right before I was winning these contests, I was running a writers meetup group, and I had people that were like entering the contest. In fact, like my co-organizer was the one that even told me about the contest to begin with. And I had an eclectic group of people, just like you see up at Writers and Illustrators of the Future, where they have like all different demographics and socioeconomic tiers and political beliefs and religious beliefs. And they're people that normally might not even want to be in the same area code with each other, but they all come together for the love of the craft, like love of writing and illustrating. And it was just like a small group, like me, we had like 7 people at the time. And one day a guy shows up for my writers meetup group. Like I didn't know he was coming, in a suit and tie with a little manila envelope or like a little folder under his arm. And he's like, "Hi, is this like the North County Writers of Speculative Fiction group?" Because I was in California. We were stationed in California at that time. And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Hi, I'm William M. Tompkins." And I had like literally no idea. Like this guy, he's passed away. I had no idea that he's the Secret Space Program insider. Like he's like the whistleblower. Like he's in the center of disclosure and nobody knows about him. And what was interesting about his case is, and this was kind of like while I was starting to enter writers at this time, they were kind of separate, but together in a weird way. And he would come to the group and no one understood what he was talking about because the guy was like 80 years old. And he would come in media res into like 80 years of memory. And we didn't know what he was talking about. People were just like, oh, he's that alien guy, that old alien guy. And so I was like, look, he's looking for something. And I had to put on my journalism cap and be like, okay, let me get to the bottom of it. There's something with this guy. Like, he's not crazy. Like, there's something up. And I was like, okay, he's looking for a ghostwriter. Okay, he has an autobiography he wants to produce on some life stories. And I pitched him to the group, actually. I was like, okay, this is Bill. He has this life story he wants to tell. He needs help writing it. And crickets chirping in the hedge. I'm like, okay, you know what? At the time, I was just having babies and I was a stay-at-home wife. And I was like, I could do this. And so I got paid, and it was less than minimum wage, actually, in California. And I didn't care, for like part-time, to piece together this guy's story. And he wasn't lying. All I could say, I've been to his house. I've seen the boxes that, like the eyes only file boxes stacked to the ceiling. I saw like all the technical drawings and technical illustrations all over his wall. He would come to the group with like pictures of UFOs. And I'm like, okay, either this guy is a clever librarian or there's something to his story. And now I can tell you, having I was a ghostwriter for his, actually, here it is, selected by extraterrestrial. I ghost wrote his book. Wow. And to this day, I'm learning about what this man was involved in. So just to like break it down into 3 areas for high level overview. One, in like the 40s, turns out that he was selected by the Office of Naval Intelligence at like age 17 because he had a photographic memory, and there's like a whole backstory on that portion of it. But they put him in a program under Admiral Rico Bada in San Diego, a Naval Air Station, and it was the first Secretary of Defense, James Forrestal, who signed the memorandum, and he's got like a picture of this in some of his books, to assign Bill. And I called him E.T. Bill. He called me Alpha Centauri. he joked that I was a Nordic alien. But so he was assigned by Secretary of Defense Forrestal in a memorandum that's signed to staff for Rear Admiral Rico Bada. And they were and I still didn't even understand this portion of it because the first book is part of like the middle section of his life. So I didn't really understand a lot of what was going on when he first got involved in all this stuff. But what was happening is we had upwards to 29 US spies in Nazi Germany that were bringing back intelligence. Sometimes it was just word of mouth. Sometimes it was technical documents, whatever they could grab. And they were bringing it to this little tiny group. With the admiral, there was like some of Bill's bosses were like captains or whatever. And they were in this little room and tower on North Island. And they were disseminating this intelligence. And it was Bill's job he calls them his girls, they're little sharp ladies, and they were engineers themselves, and they would type up these proposals. They called them packages, and what it was whatever intelligence. And Bill, he became a pilot. He has a whole story on how he just kind of learned on the fly, but he became a pilot, or there was another pilot and was just kind of showing him as he went. And he got his license that way. And he'd already gone through boot camp and everything. But they would fly these packages. They're not competitive bid proposals. They're directive proposals, the direct proposals to like aerospace companies. And they weren't even aerospace companies yet. They were just aircraft companies. So like Douglas, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Scripps, Lockheed Skunk Works at the time, and all like the naval labs in just JPL, Caltech, wherever they could find somebody to reverse engineer what the heck are the Nazis doing over there in Germany. And that was what Bill did. And he was right in the middle of this. And this is just like the first area of his life. And he said these packages were so way above top secret, they didn't even bother stamping them with classification. And they like hit him right in the open. It like in a briefcase, in the admiral's briefcase, and he would run them back and forth. And then the spies would come back. They would go back to Germany. They would come back with like updates, and they would update the packages, these proposals. They would go back. So he said that within like a 4-year time frame, he ran about 1,000 of these proposals, and they're directive bid proposals to these points of contact, all in our military and everything. And later he got out of the military, did his 4 years. I found out later that his father was a Freemason, so that actually like factors into that. But he got out and he went to work for the Douglas Rand Advanced Design think tank. It wasn't called a think tank back then, but he always referred to it. And this is where the book comes in that like I did most of my work for, is when he was in, and this was like in the 1950s, he was in this think tank. And I didn't even know then that the Rand portion of it allegedly reported directly to Majestic 12. So he's in this group, and the reason he's in there is because like before he even got into the Navy, he has a photographic memory, right? So there was like a bunch of the Navy ships that were stationed out in like Santa Monica at one point, like they were collecting the ships. This is right before the war, World War II. And he was able to go on, like the public could go on and like tour these old naval vessels. And there was Bill, and they couldn't have cameras or anything. And he's walking around and he sees all like the classified stuff, like, you know, anti-aircraft weapons and like the cords that catch the aircraft and all this. And he's in radars, and he's like, ooh, and he's like writing this down. And he goes home and he makes all these model ships with like they're exact replicas of components he's not supposed to know about, even though it was open to the public. And that's when he got picked up by the Navy. So he used his Navy ships to also get into this advanced design think tank. And you have to understand, like with disclosure happening, and even within the classified world, it's so highly classified, like it's hyper compartmentalized is what it is. And the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. There's not like really one person or one group of people who just know everything. And so it's all kind of coming out piecemeal. And then like the FBI is suspecting the CIA, and this group is suspecting that.
See, the alphabet organizations don't know squat.
Yeah, exactly.
But the military industrial complex does.
Yes. And Bill was right in the middle of it. That's the thing. And
Did you know Bill, Joe?
I know the name. I don't know. When because I was stationed in San Diego. That's where I went to boot. That's where I went to Special Forces training.
Yeah, so this would have been like in the 1940s.
Oh no, I'm not that old.
Yeah, yeah. Bill,
oh, but
he was old enough to be a part of the Battle of Los Angeles. He actually was a direct eyewitness to that.
That must have been interesting. John,
Yeah.
real quick. The reason I keep muting you is it's like you're getting airflow over your mic or something. So just when you're not talking, just mute it. That way, when you want to talk,
Okay, good.
Because I had to mute, and I don't want to mute you because I want you to be able to talk. You know, I'm not forget. I didn't. All right, Megan, let me cut you off. But
oh no,
sure, there's a lot that goes on. It's like disclosure is kind of a dirty word in the field.
it is,
because getting full disclosure is going to be tough. Getting partial disclosure, like what the stuff they're giving us now, is easy. But when they come, there's going to come a time when they have to admit to some of the stuff that went on, and that puts people in jail. So, and I've said this a million times on the air. If you really want full disclosure, you're going to have anonymity ahead of time, because there's people who really know are not going to come out and say anything when they go to jail. They're going to be like, no, I think I'll pass on this. It's because there's a few people who really do know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say is Bill was right in the middle of it. And like I said, like I didn't really have the context or the life experience, or I wasn't chasing like UFO lore or anything like that at the time. And again, not that I've not been interested, is when I worked for Bill. I literally had no clue about any of this. And I was just piecing together his story just to help him write it and put together his language so that later when he did interviews, he could actually stop coming into his memories media res. And that was the important part about him, because I'm like, to this day, finding out that he's in the center of it. So he actually consulted while he was in Douglas Rand. And then later he worked for TRW for their quote space think tank. They're not called a think tank, but that's really what they are. And so he had a hand on all of these different Black projects. And by the way, he's already given interviews on this kind of stuff. It's in his books and it's all published. So I can, I can talk, because I work for aerospace right now. So I can talk about all of his stuff. It's just, I'm synthesizing some of these dots. I could tell you all about like the Battle of Los Angeles because Bill was my mentor. Like he was my breakthrough for understanding, like not that I didn't know what MK Ultra was back then, but like I didn't know like what Project Paperclip, Blue Book, High Jump. I didn't know what all of those were, and he was like there. He was like right in the like involved in all of that kind of stuff. And so when he was at Douglas Rand think tank, even the people in engineering had no idea that this think tank existed, and they worked on advanced designs. And some of the stuff that he worked on, because there'd be like PhDs that would come down the hall and just, hey, Bill, can your team look at this? Can you consult on that? And he just touched so many different projects. And he was like, some of those were the packages that I had run like 10 years earlier. You're like, oh yeah, I know a little bit about that. And they're trying to figure out what the Nazis were building. And then later a TRW, same thing. He's like, oh, some of these were packages that I ran when I was in the Navy, and now I'm working on them and I can consult on them. And I think like, because it's so amazing, like his life, but I think one of the points that would resonate with a regular audience the most, that maybe doesn't know about too much about UFOs or what's going on in this field, is that he was the engineering section chief for the Apollo missions for Douglas. Because at the end of he worked there for like 10, 12 years, something like that. And towards the end, they were working on a stage of the Apollo missions. And he's like, what people don't know, it wasn't just about going to the moon. Okay. They were literally planning to first, there's like 4 stages. He's like, first we were going to go to the moon, like take some pictures, collect some rocks, set up a base there or whatever. And then I think phase 2, he said, was to go, to the closest 12 stars and colonize whatever habitable planets that we could find and moons and whatever. And phase 3 was going out into, like, there was phases, like they were trying to.
So actually what was really going on, Wernher von Braun never wanted to go to, he wanted to go to Mars.
He knew him.
He gave in and said, I will use it as a stepping stone, but our goal is Mars. Not only, he's like Elon. He wants to go to Mars. He wants to colonize. He wanted to colonize Mars. Now, Carol Rosin and the other assistant, I talked to both of them, and for him, it was the final breaking point, because he wanted to go to Mars. He said, this ship will make it to Mars with no problem whatsoever. We want to go to Mars, and he thought we could get there much faster than what we were told today. Now, Elon kind of updated us on that just recently, and says, well, we might be able to do a 2 to 3 month flight now. But Elon's not even doing it that way. We're going to go to the moon. We're going to send, I think he said, 200 robots to Mars and let them start building a colony before we go. And this is soon. He's talking about within the next 2-3 years sending them. So it's definitely a different world. But you know what? When you ask Elon the question about UFOs, he said he has never seen any proof or any information to suggest there's any visitation to the planet whatsoever.
But he does also work with classified programs.
He does, but he looked up and said, and I would know. He said, I'm telling y'all, he said it's not what y'all think it is. He was honest about it. He said about 95% of everything we see is ours, which is true. I mean, most of what you see released now, like those shots over the Middle East, those aren't aliens, those are ours. And you can tell by the way they move, especially when they move forward to a cross and back. It's the way our craft moves. It's just when you're looking at it from a flare way up in the air, it just looks different. But there are every now and then some that's odd, like the one that stayed with the ship riding around the ship, going up and down and inside. It actually went in one of the windows and out the other window of the ship. It was like a scene out of Close Encounters or something.
But like 2 points on what Bill was doing for Apollo. He actually met Wernher von Braun. Yeah, he sold him on the program. It was what there was other companies, aircraft companies like Northrop and no, not Northrop. It was like North American and I think Boeing were doing bids on this stage of the Apollo program, just at least getting us to the moon. And Bill has this whole scene in one of his books that, and I had to scale back some of his, he had a little bit of an extra focus on the pretty secretaries. So I had to like scale back some of that. It kind of crept back in, and he'd always call me a Nordic like alien. And I'm like, do you want full disclosure? I'm not an alien. I'm a Christian. That's full disclosure for me. But no, 2 points on Bill is with the Apollo program. I'm going to have to like lay some context for this because this involves Operation High Jump. And so for anybody who doesn't know anything about this, and it's good that I can kind of bridge this because again, like we got the experts here that know a lot about these UFO encounters and events and all this, but a regular audience might not. But Operation Paperclip during the war or after the war, we quote unquote won. Bill says we did not actually, but history so far that's whitewashed says that we did. And there was about like, Bill says there was 10% of the Nazis that were left behind because even before the war, they were allegedly taking all of their advanced designs, what they were working on, scientists, all of it to Antarctica. That's what he was saying was going on. Like they were just bringing everything down there. And what was left over at the end of the war was about 10% of all that. So he says for every 20 Nazi scientists, these are like SS members, like 20 scientists that like the Russians got, we got one, but he would say we got the smart ones. And so what was going on is they were using Operation Paperclip to bring over the talent that was available, that was left over after the war in Nazi Germany to America and kind of like getting them out of the Nuremberg trials. So they would come over and you got Wernher von Braun and Kurt Debus, who worked at NASA at that point. And when Bill was in advanced design in Douglas, he was working under a guy named Wolfgang Klemperer, who also, I believe, was, he called them the Paperclip Germans, right? And so these guys had knowledge about what they were doing over there. And I didn't ask him this because when I first worked for him, I didn't even have like the context to really ask questions that I would definitely be asking now. But apparently these guys were still in contact in some way, shape, or form with the German group at the South Pole. Okay, so they never stopped being SS. They never stopped being Nazi. And even Bill will say that like they had like this kind of not like quite invisible, but hard to see like SS symbol like on their sleeves when he met them and on the flag and all this. So they were still in some way in contact, but the Apollo program and just the rockets in general, going to the moon with that type of propulsion system, apparently, according to Bill, was a whole diversion to keep Americans away from really studying anti-gravity and exotic propulsion methods. And so he's like, because he met these guys, he actually did a proposal of their stage and he designed a long complex 39 and the L module. He designed those. Like this is my ex-boss, and I didn't even understand at the time like what he was involved in. And he's got the schematic, like he's got pictures and newspaper clippings and meeting minutes that it shows his name. Like he's got boxes full of this documentation. And so that's the first thing, is that it was a diversion. And he was like, well, Dr. Debus was actually like, how did he put it? He basically was saying that he was nice for like a good Nazi, like a good SS member. And he actually tried to make the rocket program work, even though he had one arm tied behind his back, because he was supposed to kind of keep us away from the other propulsion schemes. So apparently he tried to do, and we at least got to the moon. But the other point is, okay, so the electronics that they used in, okay, let me back up. The Nazis were apparently building their complexes manually. So like they wanted to launch rockets, whatever, and they were underground, and they had a periscope that would like pop up and see the launch. And also they were doing their vertical checkout horizontal instead of building everything vertical. And it would mess with all the components in the rocket. So Bill's like, first of all, you got to build it upright in a white room. And then secondly, what we built at in the Douglas Rand Design think tank, it's all automated with microchips. You guys are doing this manually. That was the German contract for NASA. But what they were doing at Douglas was all automated, and Bill apparently by himself, and he had extraterrestrial help in his book, or so he says. Extraterrestrial help. I definitely know that there was brainwashing going on. There's stuff going on behind the scene I can get into it a little bit later, but he had help to go propose this. He kind of went over the heads of corporate to do this. Like his whole team was behind this, but manufacturing at Douglas didn't like it very much and got him fired. He got fired for literally proposing to NASA and ended up working for NASA later, their whole Apollo program, like in stages, so that you could document everything. You could introduce changes. You could make sure everything was checked out properly. And this guy was the one that single-handedly, he has a whole story about getting a truck. He had a big model of the Complex 39. It was like a 6 foot by 6 foot, and he drove it, like got right past security, like the doors open. Like he has this whole backstory about how he ended up presenting it to Werner von Braun and Dr. Debus, and they took the proposal. They took their proposal. So he is like a plank owner for
the module
NASA.
Design was brilliant.
Yeah, and then
the module components was the smartest thing.
Yeah, and so where we got our microchips, that were in the shuttle. I didn't know this. This is so crazy. So allegedly, according to Bill, the Roswell crash of 47. Okay, I've heard him say that it's not even just one craft. It was like 3, upwards to 3. I don't know how true or correct that is, but I have heard him say. And he said that all of our, well, not all, but the microchips we used in the rockets, and that they were incorporating into their launch complexes, were reverse engineered from that record.
They may have been. So back, the Roswell Gazette had put out a picture of what looked to be aircraft aluminum, fiber optics, and what we would consider a microchip today. Now, what's funny and scary about this, if that's true, then the aliens are directly responsible for the computer age on this planet, not us, but them.
Yeah.
Because we were using silicone, but we were still using tube silicone versus solid state silicone. So it's a little.
Yeah, well, I think there's no doubt that a lot of the things that people are seeing are absolutely reverse engineered.
Oh yes.
That we have discovered anti-gravity. Colonel Corso, of course, did write in his book the day after Roswell that the integrated circuit, fiber optics, Kevlar, night vision goggles, and I think lasers were all directly from.
Yeah, people just think the stuff coming over from Germany was just the silver disc craft. It was more than that. Apparently, there's all these different programs. It's like people suddenly switched on, if you will, and they're suddenly channeling this information. And that's what our spies were just like, what?
So this should tell everybody something. So first off, the saucer that the Germans had was given to them somewhere around 1900. Somewhere around 1909 through 1917, Germany went ape crazy building saucer designs and everything. Boats, planes, you name it, tanks, had a saucer design. I mean, they just built stuff all over the place. But of course, they could never really get a plane flying or actual flying. So they kept it. The problem with the saucers is they're, for our standards, they're virtually indestructible. There's nothing we can really damage them with. And we did take that one and bring it to Roswell, and we did crash it. We crashed it. Nobody else crashed it.
Yeah, so the battle for Los Angeles, because Bill was an eyewitness to that, and I think he'd already been recruited at that point into the Navy. It was kind of like in that space between him actually working for Admiral Bata and him being a kid making models. Wow. But apparently there was not just one, there was thousands of these, these craft, and they were there all night. He said until like 5 a.m. And we had all, excuse me, we had all of our anti-aircraft guns going off, and all these shells were just bursting on the bottom. And he's like, it wasn't like the bottom, like the actual where the quote metal would be. He's like, there was some kind of like electromagnetic shield. And so what's interesting is because he worked on some of these programs, like Dr. Klemperer, that was his specialty, was working on anti-gravity propulsion methods and electromagnetic propulsion, like exotic. They called it unconventional propulsion then. Now I think they call it exotic propulsion. And
or FTL.
Yeah, and so I don't know if have you guys seen the new documentary for S4 with Bob Lazar? Because
You know, Bob Lazar is an interesting character. I know stuff about Bob Lazar that most people don't. So a good friend of mine used to work at the WIP facility. WIP facility was where we used to store we still do store all the nuclear material that's non-weapons grade. Well, she was there for a while, then she got promoted to the Yucca Mountain facility, where we store all the weapons grade. Then they sent her to Los Alamos in charge of personnel. So Los Alamos is in charge of all the main facilities in Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked her for a favor when I heard about Bob Lazar. I said, can you look up and see if he actually worked at Area 51? And she did, and he did. Problem was, he wasn't a scientist. So this is what's interesting about Bob Lazar. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen the TV series Eureka. Bob Lazar was a janitor for Area 51. So the thing about it is when you say that, it makes him sound diminished. But a janitor at Area 51, it's not the same
I don't know,
thing.
because like the documentary.
Oh no, they got the paperwork on. No, we got the paperwork on. I had to pull it and send it when they did it, just in case they tried to stop it. There was a couple of reasons why this went down. One, you couldn't verify any of his schooling anywhere.
Apparently they did. They had verified in you have to watch the documentary because I'm
no, I can tell you this because we did the research ourselves. There were no verifying. None of the people who actually he said he knew said they knew him. They all said they didn't.
I think he worked for Los Alamos on their collider.
Yeah,
because they found documentation.
On the paperwork for Los Alamos, he's listed as a janitor. That's what he's listed as. That's his name on the thing as a janitor. And
that whole field is filled with misinformation and disinformation.
Yeah,
well, because people don't understand what janitors do in places like Los Alamos or in places like Area 51. So when you have some kind of problem go down, they're the guys that go in and fix it, clean it up. So it's not you're uneducated or you're stupid or you don't have education. You do. It's just that's just your listing because that's what you do for them.
It's
you're
not
the guy that goes
the floors.
Yeah, you might sweep the floor. You might be sweeping some kind of stuff from a spacecraft, but still, it's what it comes down to. So that's why they had them listed. So when we released this initially, I had to make sure that people understood that there was a distinction between your janitor at your local office building and somebody who would be listed as a janitor at Los Alamos area.
Well, it's so interesting to me, Megan, that you're in this space. I had no idea. It's fascinating to me because there's all these really interesting connections. My favorite science fiction writer is Clifford Simak. I love his stuff. He never really wrote much about ET invasion. And I found all these articles he'd written about UFOs. I'm like, wow, this is fascinating. I had no idea that he was even aware of this subject. And he says he never wrote an alien invasion story because he just didn't find the idea of ETs invading us and taking over credible.
Yeah, because why would they want to bother?
But science fiction, that's the most popular trope, I think, in science fiction.
It is.
And when you look at the Writers of the Future books, I'm always interested to see who's covering aliens and who's not. You did. And you did.
I did. Yeah.
It was an absolutely new idea, a trope I hadn't seen before.
Well, I can tell you what was really going on behind the scenes with that, which I've never been. Okay, well, for the audience, just like a bare bones plot is basically the human race, we get invaded. I remember John asked me about the aliens, and this is kind of funny. We get invaded, but it's not like in like the traditional like biologicals, like they abduct you or anything like that. It's a race of interdimensional beings. And one of the characters call them the grunge, because what they're doing is they're putting humanity to sleep inside of our own minds, like unconscious, while they wear our bodies. We're like containers for them. And then they go and live our life and they're kind of like explorers, if you will. And we're unconscious in our own minds. And that collective consciousness, the construct is called the honeycomb, and it's a little bit like the Matrix when you see everybody asleep. And there's characters, and I'm not going to spoil it, a certain type of character, people that can disassociate and like be awake inside their own minds. And so you have these levels of consciousness where the character is going from this unconscious state, this honeycomb, to like a pre-conscious, subconscious state. And it's like, I've got the field with, there's always a tree that shows up in the twilight realms of my stories, even if I'm not aware that I'm doing it. And then there's this house that looks identical to all of the material that you're seeing from Spielberg's Disclosure Day. You see the girl in the jammies, and she's going towards this gothic house in the woods, like same exact imagery. Like, and that's not even all the symbolism that's the same, but she's going towards her conscious mind. And the house is a facsimile of her real house in real life. And she can't get past there normally because there's the aliens, and they look a little bit like the little grays, but they're not like actually physical in the sense. They just appear that way in her mind or in the minds of these people when they're trying to wake back up. And they don't even move like the way we would. They kind of like zip, like they kind of like phase in and out, and that's how they move. And that's like a bare bones plot. So it's about like trying to reclaim our bodies back from the grunge, right? That's about all I've ever told anybody about what this story is. Man, I'm going to say what it's about.
That's a Doctor Who episode. Somebody might have ripped you off. How long ago did you write this?
2012. Actually, I had.
Oh man, really? You might have got ripped off. I'm not kidding you. It's a Doctor Who episode, but it's a recent Doctor Who episode. I mean, within the last. He was on Mars, and they had these things on his faces that made them dream. And
oh no,
man!
Yeah, I actually wrote the first draft of it, like probably around the time when I was working for.
Oh man! Yeah, when you were saying it, I'm thinking I've heard this. Where did I hear this? That's why I asked you when you did it.
Here's the thing. This is something I've never told anybody, and I'm so happy to. And I'm just telling you how I've experienced it. No one has to believe anything. Like, I just knew, like, for instance, when I worked for Bill and he would start talking about aliens, it's like, well, I don't have to believe everything he's saying to believe in him, which I really did, and I'm adding a totally different layer to this. I don't even think that it contradicts anything that Bill experienced or what he would say about this. This is a different way of viewing it. So when I was young, I'm a Christian, right? Studying the Bible or whatever. I started noticing things in scripture that I was not hearing in church, and just noticing the patterns and like connecting dots and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, this is really kind of crazy sounding. So I'm going to use fiction as a medium to explore this in a safe environment, because that's, Preston would know. I mean, it's like running a simulation with guardrails. It's safe. You have the freedom to be wrong. You have the freedom to fail, right? So I'm in my safe space trying to figure out these ideas. And then later, God would show me, like, he would give me validation, like, oh, by the way, here's the book of Enoch, which is technically considered non-canonical or whatever, but I consider it, the Ethiopian canon considers it part of like the inspired word, if you will. And then later, just recently in 2024, like towards the end of it, I was like, I have to start talking about some of the stuff that I'm actually learning right from scripture. It's scriptural. I know it sounds crazy, but I have to talk about it because I can't keep it to myself, right? And it was just like, he's like, sweetheart, I have people for this. And within 24 hours or even less, I started seeing the works of a guy named Dr. Michael S. Heiser, Old Testament Hebrew scholar, very knowledgeable, and he's in the UFO scene. And it's kind of like bridging these realms that normally don't have anything to do with each other. Or, you'll see people just say, oh, aliens are demons. And I'm like, it's actually a little bit more complicated than that. You can't just say it that way. I mean, I get it, but I think that's actually a little tiny bit of a diversion from what this actually is. In Dr. Michael Heiser, when I was like, whoa, like word for word, like everything God just showed me out of his scripture. So let me give an overview of just what this is. Everybody that's within Christendom has heard of the first fall. There's the fall from great Adam and Eve, they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. There's also 2 other falls that people don't really know about. I mean, it's in the Bible, it's in this biblical literature. It's not even just biblical. It's in all the ancient texts too. The difference between the Bible and ancient texts is that ancient texts, they were the things that I'm about to talk about are the good guys. They're the ones that the ancient civilizations worshipped, whereas the Bible is like, we're going to do a polemic against. So these things were very real. Okay. So this isn't like someone's imagination or equivocation or anything like that. Well, the second 2 falls are, you could say, angelic. I do not like to use the word angel because it's like a misnomer. It's just a title that means messenger. And when we're talking about unseen realms, like beings from unseen realms, it's about as diverse as like the physical realm. We have kingdom, phyla, genus, species, right? So there's a group of these unseen realm beings, and they're luminaries. They're like, how we have like forces of nature. We got like strong force, weak force, electromagnetism, gravity, that kind of thing. Well, these are like conscious beings, like part of a group that are luminaries, and they were responsible for our awakening to consciousness. They're behind like the force of rising consciousness. They were helping us evolve. They were helping our civilization advance. And this was the first of the 2. This is Genesis 6. They decided to overstep their boundaries and become physical in some way, because they intermixed with the physical realm first and foremost with humans, like with human women. They took the daughters of men, all of which they chose according to scripture. And then they interbred and had not just the Nephilim, but like they were like messing with the whole creation, like using earth as like a petri dish, if you will. So there was that fall first. And that's what Noah's flood was about. God hit the reset button, was like, you're messing with the creation here. You're breeding out humankind. Like everybody's violent now. Yeah, these giants that were created, they're cannibalizing humans. It's just mad scientists run amok.
So I'm going to throw a big twist on you, because I was raised Catholic. I was raised. I used to teach, actually.
Nice.
So my problem here is it's as big a chance that everything on this planet was created by an alien as it was God. And its biggest chance is that what we consider God is an extraterrestrial. Matter of fact, I lost a really good job one time because I said I thought Jesus might have been an astronaut.
So that's where you have to understand that the phenomenon, and okay, let me
let me finish so you understand where I'm going. So there's a time before them. So when you hear the Sumerians talk, the Egyptians,
that's what I'm saying.
The Mesoamericans talk. The what's the ones? The Mesopotamians and the Dogon talk. So they're in order on this. They say that a race came here a long time ago, found a planet that they could not live on, built 2 great white dome cities so they could live on this planet, because there was no life like this here at the time. They created the first creation of man, which was not us. And we know that because there wasn't a reptilian section in our brain. But us, the people who live here today, have a reptilian section in our brain. The Dogon and the Egyptian and the Mesopotamian say the same thing. These people used to come down from the mountains, steal the women from Samaria, impregnate them. The children were born, and they were born different. Not that they looked different, they acted different. They were no longer willing to be the slaves anymore. They became a free society. That society eventually became this society, and that didn't even occur until after we got Rh negative blood introduced to our system. This is something most people on this planet don't even know. For 2 million years, we were brown-eyed, brown-skinned, brown-haired, Rh positive blood. We weren't even O blood yet. We were just Rh positive blood. The whole entire time we were going through the evolution, that's what we were. Something intervened directly into that group and put the group that's here today. That's actually science fact. There's no way around those things because all of that actually happened. So the real problem is here, where does God actually fit in? So I think sometimes that, because, and by the way, so you know this, Monsignor Balducci and I had this discussion on several occasions, thanks to Puyol Harris, because I couldn't speak Italian this much, but she was actually quite a good translator. First time I met him was in Washington, D.C., where I actually interviewed Edgar Mitchell and Buzz Aldrin. I've actually interviewed about 60% of all the Apollo Gemini Mercury astronauts and about over 100 of the astronauts that went up in the shuttle. So I'm very well versed in all this. I also got a bachelor's degree in advanced avionics and advanced electronics. So I understand the industry quite well and how aircraft work. And I have a high clearance. I have a class 10 clearance, which is technically higher than the one the president has, because it's a lifetime clearance. It's with me for life. So Senator McDonald, who I met by accident because he had saw something, actually told us a lot of what was going on. So as you work your way backward and you take the Sumerians, you work forward, you don't really see anything different until the time of Christ. And what I mean by that is, prior to Christ, reptilians on this planet were revered in all cultures, including the one walking around with the little handbag on his side in 11 different cultures.
Fertility tree.
They so you had a reptilian who had this thing on his wrist with another thing on his other wrist and this bag that they carried on the side. It's in Samaria, it's in Mesopotamia, it's in Egypt, but it's also in the Mesoamerican, which is much later in our evolution. So all of this is there. So we know there was someone here before what we considered the dawn of man and the birth of Christ. So we know all of this. So when you get into this, you have to stop and think, okay, more than likely God created the universe, and the universe is kind of pushing itself around on its own because we don't really know how we got here. There's only three possible ways. It's panspermia, God did, which is the creation, or aliens put us here. There's no other ways that we got here. There's no other ways that we can even say we got here. A lot of times it comes down to a personal choice, but I like science big time. And I do, and by the way, if anybody writes to me, tells me anything nasty, I do believe in God. I just don't quite believe in religion. There's a big difference.
I'm really glad that you brought up the ancient Sumerian
get out there,
and stuff. That's
what this show's about. Get out there.
Yeah, that's
Preston, you being awful quiet tonight. You scaring me, man.
Yeah, jump in. No,
quiet.
I'm glad you brought that up because one thing I think even most Christians miss is the Most High, which is very interesting because not only is the actual Bible saying that there's other gods, quote, little g, like created beings themselves. Like, you know how we are creators? Like we create things, but we're obviously not God. Like, you know, there's a difference. We can create and be a part of that, but we aren't big C creator. And I think it's so fascinating that literally like the first commandment is distinguishing that, and it's repeated throughout scripture, the Most High. And it's not actually talking about a pantheon. I know this is like some of the people that get into like Dr. Heiser's work, because he introduces like the divine council worldview, where you got God, big C, you know, big G, if you will, Yahweh, I am that I am. But he's got a family that he's created in the heavenly realms. And again, I don't like using the word angel because people think cherubim and like guy with like feather wings and all this. And instead, there's these different classes, different types of beings. And he had a whole council of them that were part of when he created. And again, we're not talking a pantheon, like they are themselves God. He's God. He just wanted to, not that he needed the help, but he wanted the help. And so that's something that I'm really glad you brought up because they're part of that process. And I think that confuses a lot of people on any side of it. They're just like, they're taking binaries. Like there can only be, you know, just God with, he didn't, and like we use pens and pencils to like create, we use our computers to create, we have tools and if you write a book with somebody, you're co-writing with them. Doesn't mean that they are you. You know what I'm saying?
No, I know what you're saying.
He had his divine council and a group, there was two, that's what I was trying to say. There's two groups. In the first one, the Genesis 6 one, and not just biblical literature, but the ancient world talks about the same stories, the same flood myths, the same thing. They have a little bit of a difference on like who's the ultimate big C creator. And that's where that hang up gets going. But people just think that like, oh, they see, they're called watchers, by the way, for anybody who needs to have a term to keep it very simple. It just means awakened one, illuminated ones. Grigori is another term that I think that's in Hittite. I'm not sure, but it's in some of the ancient literature that they're talking about the same group of beings, and they were absolutely helping in our coming to consciousness, awakening, evolution, and exactly what you just said. So, I mean, it's actually not even contradictory at all. And the Bible states it like right in scripture.
But that's the other problem. So we did, my station manager, Michelle DeRoche, is a beast of and she is a researcher from hell. Even, I mean, don't get me wrong, I have a large research organization, but she is a researcher from hell. So we got on this kick where we decided we were going to go through the codexes because that's the Bible. So what we read today is not the Bible. Most of what's in the Bible you read today, you're not going to find in the codexes. You're going to find different stories, different versions of the stories, and you're going to find quite a few other stories. There's a lot of stuff that's not actually in today's Bible. So one of the codexes from 330 AD, which is about yay thick, by the way. It talks about beings from the heavens. Mm-hmm. It talks about God was there. They at a point they took over creation, is how they describe it. So even in the original Bible, it describes it as there was a creation, but they're describing the creation of the universe, not the creation of man. They're saying that the creation of man actually came another way. Maybe it was inspired by the big boss, but they're not saying that he created. Or I don't even like using the word he. I have a hard time with the concept of super being a he. Well,
it's just language constructs. Like
it is. It's because we're stuck in confines.
Yeah, well,
I mean, like if you
go ahead. That the term angels and demons are often misused and thrown about quite a bit. I got involved. I started with science fiction, right? But I got pulled into the UFO field and started. I devoted a lot of my time to basically studying people who had first-hand encounters with ETs, and certainly all these ideas are coming up in these first-hand accounts. And
he's actually married.
Talked all about this. I talked to Michael Cremo. He's wrote the book Forbidden Archaeology. He's basically proven that we've had previous iterations on this planet, advanced civilizations. Going back millions of years.
Antediluvian worlds, multiple.
Yeah. Well, from what the ETs are telling contactees, we absolutely were put here and have been taken off and put here back.
Put back.
So
it's funny.
Over and over again, and they've influenced us in many ways. I don't buy the idea that they, quote, created us, ETs. And I certainly don't subscribe to the theory that they're demonic. Because let's face it, according to religion, 1/3 of the angels fell, but 2/3 didn't, if I'm correct.
Well, actually, just to make, for the audience's sake, to clear that part up, you get the group in Genesis 6 that came. They took like Joe was saying, they took the women and they bred with them, and it's like, try to wrap your scientific mind around whatever this, quote, angelic, just to use that term for
breeding with people.
Like how does that even work? But like whatever that was, breeding with humankind, and then everything, like the Bible says they sinned against birds and beasts. So basically anything that they could, we grow ears out of the back of mice nowadays. So they're doing this. It's like a genetic Armageddon. And the union between the watchers and the human females were the Nephilim. At least that was the big group of, there's other freaks of nature that were going on there. But when God sent the flood, he wiped it all out. So what happens to this group of rebel angels, aka watchers? What happens to the Nephilim and all this genetic Armageddon that was going on? And that's what the demons are, actually, the disembodied spirits, and not even all of them, because a bunch of them got locked up, but like 10% got left out, and not necessarily all of them, but like that's what, generally speaking, in this faith are they're the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, and they've had bodies before. That's the point. And then so what happened to the Genesis 6? They call them the Sexton angels, but like the watchers, well, according to scripture, according to the books of 2 Peter and Jude, they got locked in chains of gloomy darkness. So think about if you have like a being that's helping to raise our consciousness, that's illuminating us, and it gets locked in utter darkness, and they're in Tartarus is what the New Testament uses that term. And so that's something that I really had to point out, because people, even Christians, they don't understand that what demons versus like angels even are in our own texts in a lot of cases, and to make it very distinct, that's important. Like I said, there's even like a third fall at the Tower of Babel.
I think there may be a clear difference between what we would call an angel and an ET, because I've interviewed a number of people who've said that they've had angelic encounters, and I've certainly interviewed people who've suffered through very serious demonic hauntings, and certainly people who've been taken on board. And from what I can tell, these are entirely separate.
They're entirely different things.
A demonic haunting follows a very.
I'll tell you a secret that Monsignor Balducci told me, along with Cardinal Bruce told me. Both of them told me this in the same day. That the Vatican considers ET to be closer to God than we are, on a much higher plane of existence than we exist. Now, they're probably right, because the Greys are supposed to be close to 1 billion years old, which means, yes, odds are they know a lot more about everything than we do. And the other races are far older than we are. We're babies.
We'll bring up the idea of God in a number of cases.
Yeah, so they're
I
not
just covered one. They called it the supreme deity.
Well, we know
the one, or the all mind.
Well, this
we
is
know
where
the reptilians and the humans both have. They both believe in a single entity as a god. Now, how they believe, I don't. It's anybody's best guess. But the Greys seem to keep things a little closer to their chest, though, for some reason. They just seem to like to keep things very, very close. But they do definitely believe that there's something out there other than us. And the Vatican definitely believes that ET is much closer to God than we are. I was stunned. You can ask Paul. I was stunned. I was just, what? I did not expect that to come out of a Mount Senior's mouth. I ain't gonna lie. Or a Cardinal's.
Well, here's the thing, and I have insight into that too. This is where I get to talk about the real story behind the siren. Like, what is it actually really about? In a log line, it's about the return of the B'nai Ha-Elohim, the Genesis 6 angels that were locked in Tartarus. That's what it's actually about. And what you have to understand is the second fall, real quick, was just at the Tower of Babel. Like, you get the flood, it's all wiped out. And then you get this character, according to the Jewish historian Josephus and the Bible itself, his name is Nimrod. But you see him, and I'm not the only person that like draws this parallel too, by the way. He's, I think, the same character as Enmar-Kar in the Mesopotamia myths, where they were trying to create a tower to reach God, basically like a Stargate, if you will. Like they call it an oikaterion, like a house, an abode, some place to call down like these beings, and like he was trying to get the creator God to come down and pay attention to him. And without getting too heavy into this area, but they were using the ritualistic sex magic to have that happen. That's where we get into some of the really, really dark stuff. And God came down and was just like, I literally just hit the reset button and wiped this all out. But at some point they let out giants again. So like, how does that happen? If God wiped it all out, like how come they're coming back? And you get stories of the Israelites trying to like do this mop up mission.
Because some of these, okay, so when it comes to extraterrestrials, they come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. So we know one of the races that came here, according to from the Middle East and some of the skulls that were found in Canada, they had to be around 20, 22, 24, 25 feet tall. Now, we also know living in Area 54 right now in Nevada is the set of aliens that are around 9 foot tall, 9 to 10 foot tall. That's their average height. Of course, they get old, they get taller as they get older, and their body gets frailer as they get, but still. And in a ways, they're a lot like us, and in a ways, they're not. But I mean, they're way more advanced than we are. But in evolution, they're not that far ahead of us. Technologically, they are probably 10, 15,000 years. But evolution-wise, they're not. As far as how we look, can we kill them? Yeah, we can kill them. The Greys, on the other hand, evolution-wise, they're so far beyond this, it's not even fun. I mean, you can't even kill them. I mean, they can just upload their consciousness to a new body. I mean, it's a waste of time to even try to kill them. And then now we also know, because in 2000, our government, well, actually before that, there was a dude in 1995, I think it was, put a microchip in his head to see if he could record memories. And he did. He successfully recorded memories in his brain. So at that point, science realized, we can get memories out of your brain. Now, there's been a couple of developments since then. We all know about Elon Musk's neural chip that allows you to run your computer through thought. We also know that the F-25 does not have a joystick in it, which means it operates through thought. It's one of the reasons we don't give it out to anybody because it's so damn advanced. It's one of the few planes we won't even give to our allies. We're like, no, can't have it all. It's too advanced. So we know all of these things are starting to exist. We know that in 2020, the government dropped its remote viewing program and decided they wanted to go for a telepathic program.
I took a class, by the way.
Did you? Well, they actually, the Navy and the Air Force in 2020 put an ad in the paper looking for telepaths. I was like stuck. I mean, we carried it on the show for like 6 months because it was insane. I'm thinking they did not just do this. So not only did they declassify you and tell you, yes, we do this, we're actually recruiting. I didn't know what to think about it. And I still don't, because really and truly, it just tells you our government does this. But we have learned some things, like we know they wanted telepaths over remote viewers because telepaths can see more. A remote viewer can tell you a location of something. A telepath can actually see the code and the thing and end where it's at. So it's a little bit different. Telekinesis is what they're after, though. Fortunately, for us, it must be a lot harder to obtain, because you would know when any country on this planet gets telekinesis, because world leaders will just start dropping dead. They'll have aneurysms, they'll have heart attacks. All you have to do is think about squeezing an artery to kill somebody. You'll know when that becomes something. Right now, we just haven't reached it. Plus, somebody will take Randy's $1 million when they make him float up in the sky or something like that.
Well, I was just going to say to my point of the Genesis 6, that's just being one fall, but the second one was Tower of Babel. They started letting some of them back out. I call it Angel Alcatraz, this prison. And I wasn't quite sure. I mean, I get the miss of NK and neill, and I wasn't quite sure how many were getting let out of their Chains of Gloomy Darkness at Tower of Babel, but that's where you get the recursion of it's genetic Armageddon. Like, they're breeding all, like, what do you get when you mix all these different species? And it's very possible that some of that actually survived the flood underground. I have a theory about that it wasn't just, Noah's Ark. You get like the 8 people on the boat. Yeah, God cracked open the aquifers, like
we know through genetics that in order to have a viable population of 8 billion, you had to start out with somewhere around 7,000 or 8,000 people. Anything less than that, you get genetic backwards. So you start getting retardation and stuff like that. Everything doubles up. So you start interbreeding after just 5 generations. After 10 generations, what happens is either people are brilliant or they're retarded, but there doesn't seem to be any middle anymore. There's no just everyday people anymore. It just phases them out. So you have to have a healthy selection. And the genetics, they talk about this all the time. But the original number was 3,000 because when they did this experiment the first time, there was only 2 billion people on the planet. But of course, today there's 8.5 billion people. And a forecast to reach 10 billion in less than 5 years. So, we're moving along things. And then there's these other weird things. Preston, did you ever read Rachel's Eyes?
I did.
Oh,
yeah, it was
I have,
a great
yeah.
book.
Have you? Okay, well, I did the interviews with Helen and them, and
yeah, I talked to her as well.
Yeah, she was. So the first 3 interviews, because she's a little older, so the first 3 interviews we did, I just was letting her talk, and then one afternoon we just got to chit chat in her hair without really paying attention, and she just started letting stuff out, and I was like, I mean, this kid, this hybrid, definitely went through some stuff. The fact that the hybrid was left to come on the planet really surprised me, because usually what you see with ET is, okay, if they're look enough and act enough like humans, they stay with their mom. If not, they go back to the ship because they don't want them to get picked up. But not only did the aliens allow her to stay, but the government was fully and functionally aware that she was here. That was very strange, because they used to come to the college where she was. She had to have special food and other special things. The whole thing was just so weird and so creepy. And I'm always funny when I only get one case. I need more than one case to put it in my research files. So we actually found 2 more like it. But it was the more I talked to her, the creepier. It just sounded just such like a horrible life. But I mean, I hate to say it that way, because in some ways the girl sounded like she was very gifted in a lot of things, but also she looked enough different than us that people, were staring at her.
Yeah, I found it to be a really compelling story, and she certainly seemed very honest and sincere.
She did.
And it's not the only case I've heard of so-called hybrids living among us, or ETs walking among us. Remember, some of these guys look just like us. So by all accounts, there's human beings throughout the universe.
Either paradigm that you stick to, there's hybridization going on, whether it's the biblical worldview or, the traditional like ET, but that's what people don't understand so much. They just look for the green alien, like from Mars or whatever. And there's a lot of like interdimensional stuff happening. And whatever got let out at Tower of Babel, that's where you get the whole mystery. I'm not going to like get too complicated into it, but that's where you get like Mystery Babylon thinking, because they're groups of these type of entities that are associated with constellations in the sky, and they have like a collective spirit over them. That's where you get the Mystery Babylon term, a dominion, if you will, that's called the Queen of Heaven and the mother of astral beings. And so whatever got let out of the Abzu, and this is a different group of these quote angelic beings, if you will, watchers, than what God had sent down at the Tower of Babel, because he was torqued. He was like, I just sent the flood. You let this all out, and I'm divorcing humanity. I'm going to take my portion that was Israel, and there's another group that came down that he put over all the different people groups. Like, they're spirits. They're connected to geography, but they're also connected to philosophy and people's religious beliefs and the whatnot. And they're governing spirits. And then they rebelled, which was the whole point. Like the Jesus on the cross wasn't even just about like salvation for humanity. It was like conquering all of that. Like,
isn't that a big argument? God.
Yeah, it's like taking back jurisdiction is what that's for, of all of the principalities that were all of the different people groups. Like, that's another thing that was going on with that. But whatever got let out, I think there's been possibly more getting let out. So there, again, two different groups of these like quote angelic beings. And fast forward to the world wars. Okay. I knew that based on what Bill was telling me, E.T. Bell, my old boss, and my own research and understanding, is what was happening with this Nazi tech is you had societies like the Vril Society and Maria Ors. Like, he used to joke and say that, well, like, I was a Nordic alien and all this stuff. And I thought he was kidding, but I actually think that he thought that I was an alien, like for real, like a real alien.
98% of everybody who's been taken never knows, right? So you just never know. It's one of them things. Wait, I got to answer a question for somebody right quick. No, Gene, what I was saying earlier was, so right now, as the science stays right now, they said our civilization is 6,000 years old. Of course, now, 90s, we found 2 cities off the coast of India. 2 sunken cities date back 15,000 years. Just recently, they found another one off Cuba. It's 2 now off the coast of Cuba. This one dates back to 12,500 years, which is 15,000 years ago. There's been 2 others found, and they found a pyramid off the coast of Japan just 3 days ago. So there was a much older society here, much before what we consider the dawn of man, which is the Middle East, is not where it started. It doesn't look like. It looks like when you look at these other cities, because one of them's in Cuba, for God's sakes, it's on the other side of the world. So you got to wonder how they even got there. And then you've got Japan, which is, of course, is an island nation. You got a pyramid sitting up the coast. So at one point, there must have been far less water on the planet, and because a lot of these cities are under 800 feet, 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet of water. But it does show that advanced societies lived here long before the 2 Indian cities had modern plumbing like the Greeks did. They said it was about 250 to 285,000 per city. They were very advanced, very spread out, right on the water. They weren't supposed to exist. I mean, that was the Stone Age. None of that stuff was supposed. I mean, come on, you can't cut rock with stone, man. I'm giving you a break.
We're stepping on the stones of like modern textbook history science. And Bill would tell you too that like everything that you've ever learned is wrong. He's like, that's like when he would give his backstory on Admiral Ricobata. Apparently, he wasn't even originally an American. And they wanted someone, like Forrestal wanted someone to head up these spies, and he needed someone who hadn't been to Annapolis. That's where all the officers get sent to learn everything, but their college, if you will. And he hadn't been there. They needed somebody that hadn't been, quote, according to Bill, brainwashed with all of like the current history. That was the point. Yeah.
You get indoctrinated.
And it's everything. It's like medicine, just history in general, like pick your category. There's misinformation according to him. And I can see that, like being a Bible scholar, I can absolutely see that. And I can absolutely vouch for the fact that there's an antediluvian world, possibly multiples. So like Nazi Germany, when they were doing their technology, like reverse engineering craft and coming up with these different programs and coming up with like cybernetics and different propulsion systems and just any kind of science that you could figure out, they were into with all these programs. But what was going on was the Vril Society, and then there was others too, not just them, but the Vril Society, they were mediums. They were cracking open, I guess you can call them gates, like lines of communication to the Watchers. And in fact, I heard Corey Good, he's another secret space program insider abductee. Like, and again, I'm not like huge into the scene, so I don't know tons about his backstory, but I had heard him also corroborate something that I already was researching and already knew, that we were receiving the instructions for this advanced spacecraft and all these different technologies through channeling it. And we were, not that they never dug anything up or were, quote, handed anything outright, but mostly they were channeling the technical data on all of this, and we were building it on our side. And so when these spies came over, they grabbed whatever they could. It was like manuals in German and in English and in like strange, weird hieroglyphics. So if you know like ancient, like Sumerian, which I certainly don't, all the ancient languages, that comes into it too. And they were running it back. And that's what all like the aerospace companies now were being directed to. You guys need to look into this. What is it? How can we use it? Is it dangerous? Reverse engineer this. And then boom, we have all this like explosion in various fields, and not just in rocketry, but medicine, like big pharma and cybernetics. And like now we got AI, like this is all coming from the same place. Yeah. And Maria Orsic, who is the leader of the Vril Society, apparently was in contact with, was channeling not just Watchers. She was channeling the leader, Samyaza, apparently. And that was corroborated by Corey Good talking about how this individual was appearing to other couples. They thought it was Maria Orsic, but she was calling herself Samyazi, or what, like there's variations on the name. So I'm like, this is crazy. And that's why I wanted to, just because like I wasn't hearing this in church, and I wanted to explore this idea in the Siren. And I do this in a lot of different fiction. And I wanted to just ask, what if? So that's what it's actually really about. That story is the return of the Genesis 6 B'nai Elohim. They're back. They're engaging in all of their Genesis 6 hybridizations. So whether you have stuff that came from the flood beforehand, like that survived underground, or if it was just only let out at the Tower of Babel, we're letting out a lot of this stuff now. Like that's the point. They're breaking out of their angel Alcatraz. And again, like I don't know if they're all out. I don't think they are necessarily, but there's quite a few. And that's what ascension is. Like they want to, like what I said in the Siren, or over here, my thing is, it's a mirror. What I was saying in the Siren is like they want to use our body, like put us to sleep, if you will. Not that we're like completely unconscious, but they want to use our bodies as containers to do what they do. And we're fighting back against that. So that's what it's actually, the Siren's really about, is the return of the Genesis 6.
But you better hope it ain't the light beams, because there ain't no fighting against them. you can forget that. There ain't no fighting against them. They'll burn your brain out.
Yeah, I'm actually like just so happy that John invited me on here to tell this, because it didn't even, he's amazing, because like it didn't even occur to me. I'm like, John did I even tell you?
I want to know where the alien horse went that was behind Preston a minute ago. There was you had an alien horse behind you a minute ago.
He's like, what?
Oh yeah. We have a pet horse in the house. Yeah.
Yes, I talked to monster.
But going back to the Tower of Babel, from what I understand from an ET perspective, because some contactees have been told this, that was the time when we lost the ability to have telepathic communication. And this is when languages were formed, and this is when this caused all kinds of strife and divisiveness, and really was the beginning of the end for us, or in terms of not evolving in the direction we were supposed to.
Yeah, it sounds like a disruption in Watcher plans to me. Like they have, and they are very factional too, by the way. So again, this is just something that people get like Christians. My brethren get confused about this. They're like, oh, if it's they think in binaries. If it's dark, it must be a demon. If it's light, it must be an angel and a good angel. And I'm like, no, actually, I call them artificial light because they're rebels.
We're fixing to breed all humans off the planet. If you are RH positive, happy holidays, people.
Well, I have another question for you, Megan. And this kind of goes back to the whole science fiction angle. There are people who write having a really clear idea of where their story starts and where it ends, and they plot it all out. And there's pantsers, as they call them. They just got their idea, they go right through it. Which one are you?
I am actually the version that like puts at least 25% of everything that I write. It doesn't even matter what genre it's in. It's based on a dream. And this involves it's very this is 25% was based on an abduction dream.
Oh wow. Yeah. I usually I'd like to have an idea of where I'm going to end at. But it's really the idea that drives the story for me. And it takes on a life of its own. And I love that when the characters start coming alive and they take control of the story.
Yeah.
And then you know it's good when it's really the ideas are coming faster than you can write them.
Yeah.
So I think there's almost a channel. I don't like the term channeling, but there's almost a channeling aspect.
Be careful with that word.
You know what I mean?
Be very careful because you might.
Now, as we get towards the last, I'm going to open my mouth now. I've been listening for the last hour and 45 minutes. So as we get the last 15 minutes here, since a lot of what I do is write, and you're both here as past writers of feature winners, and Megan is illustrated as a feature winner. So for people that are listening, both writers and readers, so because Preston, you epitomize never give up, because you entered, I think, 47 times before you won.
What?
That's right.
Yeah, and Megan, I've talked to so many people said I want to win both of them. So like you've accomplished something that some people have tried but not done. So one of the things I like to do, and that's part of what the Rise of Future podcast is, which by the way, I just found out the Rise of Future podcast is the number 7 most popular fiction writing podcast in the US out of all the podcasts, out of the thousands. It's number 7 right now.
Nice.
Wow.
But
that's awesome.
Yeah, what tip would you give then, girls first, Megan, on for those people that want to be able to just create science fiction, fantasy, and your art to be able to make it to the next level?
I would tell, whether they're writers or illustrators, because I'm both, I would tell them, like, if you have an idea, or if you're just like wanting to explore a concept, something that's meaningful to you in any medium, like the medium of your choice, do it, and don't let anybody tell you no, and don't get discouraged because you're going to have your day. I have never been able to say this about working for E.T. Bill before. Up until this podcast, even after I won these, I haven't been even able to say what the Siren's really about, that it's about the return of the B'nai Elohim, Genesis 6 watchers. I haven't, not until this point. And there will be a point in time when your creativity will be able to see its light. And you're going to be able to get your message out. Because I know for a lot of us, like I can only speak for myself, actually. To me, it wasn't like a popularity contest, like, ooh, I want to win a contest because I'm so awesome or something. That wasn't it. That was just like, I know I have a really good idea and I know that people need to hear it. And this is a really good launch pad for individuals who do want to have their career, a possibility of their career blossoming. Like for me, I ended up like, I kind of had some false launches because I was like, I won these contests and then I was in a very violent situation and I had to like flee. Like I mentioned earlier, I've been getting handled in the family court, but I formed my contacts with John Goodwin, obviously, and all the writer and illustrator winners and the judges. At that point, then it can kind of become who you know, and they look out for you. And I just knew, I I can reach out to John and be like, I don't think I ever told you that I worked for E.T. Bill. It never even popped into my head because he wasn't published when I was, as far as I knew, when I was entering the contest. But now I could reach out to John, and here I am. I get to talk about it. So yeah, never give up. Like, if you have an idea, it will be realized. Just don't give up on that and believe in yourself, for sure. That's my advice.
Okay, good. And you, Preston, because you had every eye in the theater when you giving your success when you're up on stage, crying. So
in tux too.
Yeah. So your advice.
Yeah, well, of course, don't give up. I mean, that's, I think, obvious. Develop a thick skin. But really, I would tell people, just write what you want to write, what you think is interesting. Don't write for what you think other people want to read. Because if you love your story, the chances are other people are going to feel that too. Do enter the Writers of the Future.
Yeah.
Every time the opportunities of this contest really kicked me up to a whole new level. And that's really what I would tell people, because this can be a very difficult career choice. I know my family was like, this is going to be hard for you. I'm like, but this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
This is what brings me joy. And that's probably the best advice I could give to people. Just write what you want to write. Don't give up. We all know the secret to success is persistence. And success will come. Follow your excitement.
Yeah, if you persist. In when L. Hubbard created his contest in 1983, he wrote in the first essay that a culture is as rich and as capable of surviving as it has imaginative artists. It is with this in mind that initiated means for new and budding writers to have a chance for their creative efforts to be seen and acknowledged. So it's interesting because we broke 1,000 this year, and we have no idea what the people are like. They ended a story and we select them based on their story. They have nothing to do with their personality or anything else. And it's interesting how, for the most part, the winners are just, they can appreciate the fact that there's someone that's cheering them on. L. Ron Hubbard did this to cheer people on. And, it's like, it's a good thing. And so I love both of you. I think you're both amazing people. And I've seen how your careers blossom, Preston, and just, Meghan, you're just such a beautiful person. I think it's just amazing,
Yeah, well, one thing I would quickly add, if I may, I was on the forum. Yeah, go to the forum. I learned so much there. I was asking people, how many stories do you have out that are trying to find a market? People say, I have 3, I have 7. I had 40 stories out there searching for a home. If you really want this, you have to do the work.
Yeah.
People say, I can't find the time. Find the time.
Find the time.
You need to make it. Yeah, it's not something that's like, I wish I had time. Or I wish I had. No, you make your own success. You make your own luck on this thing here. So you create, you persist. You get yourself a group of people too that are like-minded, folks that are there. You need a group of people that will encourage you, not to kind of say, okay, oh man, Preston, Meghan, just like,
me.
Yeah. You definitely need that, but
that will tell you the truth in love too. Like when I ran my writers meetup group, one of the things I liked to do was I always would want to find something that was really working. Not you're not like BSing them, something that you really thought was good for the story that you enjoyed or whatever. And you give them that criticism first because it's positive. And then if there's anything that they might take in a negative way, then you can, give them that and give them ideas. And it kind of like loosens them up. And it's like, okay, this person actually cares. And I don't have to, I can listen to them and I don't have to take a word that they say. I just write my project the way I want.
Yeah. You talk about the forum because we've won, it's the Critters Award. It's a very popular in the U.S. Science fiction, organization, and so it's got one of the competitions is Writers Forum, and Writers of the Future's won I think the last 3 or 4 years in a row as the top writer forum, And I mentioned about the podcast. We have the free online writing course that's got over 10,000 people on the course now, or have taken the course. So it's the whole thing that was created by L. Ron Hubbard was to provide that. And even since the 30s and 40s, he was writing essays to help writers, and so it's not a new thing. It didn't start in '83. He started it as a writer himself, as one of those popular writers in pulp fiction. So it's something that people understand, and it's unfortunate because as the planet gets more and more jaded because of whatever reason, you were talking about some of the things that began the schism. But right now, with the advent of social media several years ago, it's accelerated. So you've got
exponentially.
You got the hate, and you got to have the Euclid, the two-valued logic. It's either good or it's bad. It's right or it's wrong. It's black or it's white. There's no, and Hubbard got into the whole thing. You've got the infinity value logic, where you've got the greater good and the greater bad. And but it's interesting. You got people who can't conceive the idea of just something that somebody could just want to help you without wanting anything in return. Like both of you have won the contest, and there's nothing L. Ron Hubbard asked for in return. You didn't get anything, any request. It was just and right now it's up to almost $30,000 a winner that he's directed, that to be funded for the winners. That's what's costing with modern US dollars. And it's there's nothing that's requested back. It's just that, he says that the artist injects the spirit of life into a culture. And so that's the whole thing, to be able to do this. And if you look at the winners of Writers of the Future, Writers of the Future, we definitely don't have an agenda or a certain
you don't.
Certain class of people. It's all over the place. That's why I stay clear of media. I stay clear of race. I stay clear of religion. I stay clear of politics. It's just about creativity. And that's all that L. Ron Hubbard was interested in, was just validating that creativity.
Yeah, to that point,
the superstars that have come out of the Writers of the Future too.
Yeah,
some amazingly successful folks.
To that point, it's not even just the judges, anybody who's involved in this. This is kind of rare, but I've actually had people like, "Oh, you must be a Scientologist because you won that." I'm like, I'm actually a Christian. But you know what? All of the people I was winning with, and the judges, and the people who are running this, they come from all these different faith beliefs.
Yeah,
that's what I said earlier. I'm like, we can get along with each other for the love of storytelling. And the best part about science fiction and fantasy, or speculative fiction, is just like what John said, we are writing the blueprints of the future. And it's not just cool new technology. All right. It's ideas. It's society in general, that we are thinking it up. We're asking the what if questions, and then scientists get inspired off of it, and people in different fields, and they go make it real. So we're writing the future is what we're doing, and we're doing it from all different backgrounds. And
that's a very good point. And just to the point of Scientology, that's where you also get the internet, the hate. You just get. But I can find as much hate against Christianity. I can find about Judaism, about Mormonism, about every religion you can find. Hate.
Atheism, all of it. All of it.
And that's the unfortunate thing about the internet, where you get people that just, instead of looking, they'll go into the rabbit hole of hate. Oh, look at this, and they'll just go, oh, look at this, and I'll find more reason to hate and to disparage. And it's unfortunate because we've had over 1,000 winners, and there's, Hubbard in his research said you're going to have about 2.5% of the people are just antisocial. And then you have about 20% are the effect of those people that are antisocial. And then you have the other 80%, which are just they're cool people. They're going out there living their life and doing well. And so you're going to have the people that are just constantly trying to stir up and create problems and make you feel bad and yeah, well, that's bad. It was like this or it was that. It's those are people.
But it's funny though, when I first met y'all, when I go out on lecture tours, in the beginning, I had a few 50-50 ask me about Scientology. Now, every now and then I get a smart ass professor or someone who wants to be a smart ass, but I'm really good at handling these people. So usually it takes me about 15 seconds to put them in their place. So I always tell them the same thing though. If somebody asked me, just recently somebody asked me about it on the station. I said, no, they're Scientologists. And he said, well, aren't they evil? I said, I don't know. I've been knowing them for 8 years. I said, you're nicer than most of the people I've been knowing for 30. I said, all I can tell you, I can only judge them by their actions. I said, they go out of their way to take care of me, all the winners, all the staff. Everybody's polite. They're nice. They never can stop moving. I said, it's like watching the stars in motion. I mean, they're always moving around doing something. And I said, and they're in a good mood while they're doing it, and they enjoy what they do. I'm like, I don't know, don't sound like baby eaters to me. It's but sometimes you just got to be rude to them. And then my favorite thing is, I said, look, when they start murdering little babies and molesting them in the church, we'll talk. Until then, why don't you go find somebody else to pay? After that, most people just go and don't say another word. They just move their little selves along and leave it at that. I try to be nice, but every now and then you got to be really good. I'll tell you a little funny story. I was in D.C. doing an interview. I was one of the X conferences with Stephen Bissett, and I was interviewing Buzz Aldrin, and Edgar Mitchell goes, he said, Buzz, stop that. And he's like, what? He said, because Buzz always says they didn't go to the moon. So Edgar looks over and he goes, Buzz. He said, Ed, come on, dude. He called him some little pet name. He said, come on, I am tired of saying we've gone to the moon. How many times I got to tell people it's on freaking TV, man? He was upset about it. He said, so he decided, it was like 10 years early. He said, I decided from now on, when somebody asked me if he went to the moon, I'm saying, no, he did not. Oh, Edgar gave me so much shit about it. I was like, and then I forgot who it was. One of the
what? You don't think we went to the moon? You would have to argue with E.T. Bill about that.
Man, look, see, I know we did, but I tell this to people all the time. I'm like, look, I said, first off, that anybody could get Russia and China to keep it a secret would be amazing that we didn't go, because they would have known if we didn't go. Plus, you have 50 countries tracked the mission, so you'd have to get all them people alive for you. But more than that, you can actually see the landers on the moon today. There's 9 global surveyors up there right now. There are 8 different countries you can see our landers with. Well, you can even see the one where they dropped and it flipped and rolled on its side. You can see it too. One of them, you can even kind of make the flag out.
There you go, Megan. Yeah.
That looks like my underground shelter, actually.
It's I think it was like 250 feet across one. All kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, so
that's the inside. That's the inside.
That's it.
Of it.
All right, Mike. I'm sorry. I think it's time. John, you need to buy me a new mic. Shabby looking. Begging for mics, man. I guess I should just get this one. Just this.
Oh, by the way, if anybody listening to this is in Los Angeles, in the next on the 11th of July, we're celebrating 90 years with Hubbard as entering the Western Writers, and so I've got the executive director of Western Writers of America coming in, and we're doing a live radio show or a live radio theater show in our offices on the 11th, which is Saturday, the 11th of July. And if anybody's here, go ahead and call in and ask for Joni Labaki and to RSVP. And you can call the number 323-466-3310. And it's going to be a great show. We're having dinner at first. It's free to enter because it's a celebration of 90 years. But we got several Hollywood actors. They're going to be here performing. And like I said, a little bit of a thing from the executive director. And so it'll be a lot of fun on Saturday night, and starts at 6:00 and it goes to about 10:00 or so at night. But if you're in LA and want to come, just again call 323-466-3310 and ask for Joni Labaki and confirm so that you can attend on July 11th, celebrating 90 years as a Western writer. If you like the Western genre, it's a great story.
Yeah, sounds fun.
Your radio shows are fun. They should go. They should go.
Yes. Oh yeah, the radio shows are great. Always.
They're
fun.
One
of my favorite things. Oh no, Christopher Joni's a vampire. Yeah, that's the only way she can do what she does. She has to be a vampire. Plus, the woman hasn't aged since I've seen her. Yes, no. Actually, she looks better every year.
She clones herself.
I told her. I said, this is not right. She's like, what do you mean? I said, you're getting younger. This is bullshit. I was like, what's going on here? I was like, this is not working for me.
So, Preston, are you in LA?
No, I moved out of California. I'm on the East Coast now.
Okay.
He's living in civilization where nice people live.
Yeah.
So, in the nice
But I
part
miss
of the
LA.
country. Yeah.
Joni was terrific. It was so cool to finally
Joni's great.
meet her. I met her face to face several times. She's like, "You finally did it. You won." I'm like, "Yeah." It was just so awesome. And to have my full, my Topanga Canyon story come full circle and show that, you will succeed if you don't give up. Really put a real good ending on the whole Topanga Canyon story of don't give up.
Yeah, you were one of the first podcasts I did with Dean Wesley Smith talking about that story. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's great. What a lovely man.
Dean's a lot of fun to talk to.
Yes.
So somehow or another, him and I got together and made business sound exciting. He got cornered. We were at the second year, it might have been first year. We were at the barbecue and he got cornered by about 10 guys, and they started asking him about S corps versus corporations versus C corps. And again, him and I started geeking out talking about it because we both own businesses. And they're like, I said, why don't you just listen to Wesley and I? You'll find out what the hell we're talking about. I said, it'd be easier than us just try to sit here and explain to you. But it was, I just, because he was kind of like cornered. He was trying to eat and have a friendly conversation. No, Jack. So the judges are super nice. They go out of their way to talk to people.
They do.
And they do. Plus this BarCon, LobbyCon, whatever you call it. You can come down there. Judges rotate in and out all day long. But the author judges for sure like to go hang out and get a snack, sit downstairs. You'll see Tim Powers down there. You see Joey Minaj.
Tim.
Yes. And,
I love Tim.
Tim's the best.
Oh, Tim is great. He's hilarious. No, you see Wesley Dean Smith, Kevin J. Anderson.
Yep.
A whole bunch of them down there.
That was one of the best things about winning, actually, just getting to sort of rub elbows with these guys.
Yeah, that's what the best part when I was invited back was even more exciting than when I actually won, because then I could introduce them. It's like, oh, you want to talk to Orson Scott Card, but you're kind of shy. I'm like, he's eating lunch, like right there.
Oh, Orson's a blast to talk
Let's
to.
go.
I learned there's certain questions you don't ask Orson. We got it. Well, we did an interview, and then I don't know what happened. I asked him something. I asked him something about something happened to him, and then he told me. And that turned into like an additional 2.5 hour conversation.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Well, I said, no, Orson, I don't know if we can make this public. John heard me. I said,
they're all Jedi Knights.
For sure. It's but he's always fun to talk to. He's always a blast. He's always got a little wit to go by. He's always a character. It's always a joke talking to.
And one piece of advice I would give to people who are trying to enter this contest: read the books.
Yeah.
Story. That's the best advice you can get to how to win this contest, because the stories have a certain flavor to them.
Yes.
And it can be very, very short. Mine was pretty short.
Yeah.
They can be very long.
Preston gave y'all the two best ways to win: take the course, read the books.
Yes.
It's if you do that,
you can win. No, I know there's a lot of entries, but let's face it.
And it's free to enter.
Yeah, most
4 times a year too. You can enter 4 times a year, people.
I'm always curious about how many entries there are, and I know it's kind of a closely guarded secret.
Yeah, well, I would say right now there's thousands of entries every quarter.
Yeah, but the way I look at it is, honestly, the way to win is to just get into that pool of honorable mentions and above. Mm-hmm. Write a really good story and make sure it's speculative fiction. Polish it up, and you're in. You will start earning your honorable mentions and be considered as a winner.
Well, that's one thing that's happened right now too, because of right now we're in year 43, and we've got the fact of people now post that they've won honorable mention in Writers of the Future. It's not a reject anymore; it's a win, and it's something that, because of the number of entries and the fact that it's known in the world around us that it's blind judged. So if you are an honorable mention, you're top 10 percentile. So other editors will take you out of the slush pile and will pay attention to you.
It worked for me. I got my honorable mentions published by just mentioning this was an honorable mention.
It can't hurt. There's no way it's right.
It worked. It absolutely worked for me. And winning actually opened the doors for a number of publications for me.
Yeah, Gene, they'll fly in from anywhere in the world. Matter of fact, since I've known them, their international winners are double.
I had the editor of Flying Saucer, the big one, in fantasy and science fiction. He congratulated me personally, the editor.
Wow, that's great.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just Megan just needs to walk around. She can walk around and say, "Yeah, I won both Writers and Illustrators of the Future," and people will like start bowing.
Hey, I'm telling you, do a Composers of the Future next. I'll enter it for sure.
Okay.
Any creative field, I'll enter it.
we get so many else. You should do this. I said, you have no idea what it takes just doing Writers and Illustrators in science fiction and fantasy. It's a lot of work to be able
a lot
to
of work for you guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we also just don't, when you're done, it's not over. We then work with you to be able to help publicize you and get you on radio, TV, other media to help launch your careers. And then people write to me like 20 years later, say, "Hey, I just got my first book out there. So send it to me and I'll get you on the podcast, or we'll invite you on the Authors Quill." So it's always about continuing to support writers, which was the intention.
Yes.
When Hubbard first created the contest, was to be able to encourage writers. And right now, I think last year there was over 5 million books published. So how do you get your voice heard? How do you get recognized and noticed? And this is one of the main ways you can do it, is Rise to the Future and the Authors Quill.
When get on these shows. See, get on Preston. Preston, last I checked, somewhere around 1.1, 1.2 million listeners on his show. So, you just if you can get on the podcast, are good these days, because for us it's weird because we reach out so far outside of the country, and really and truly, if you do our audience, our international audience, frankly, we don't know this audiences. But
this show here is about 5.5 million listeners, and the podcast, my podcast, is about 4 million listeners now.
It gets me just how many people listen to us in non-English speaking places. It's cool to know that they're listening, and then you got to think, like, the show UFO Undercover, it comes on in the evenings, so it has a huge audience in England, but it doesn't even air till 1 a.m. in England. It doesn't air to Italy till almost 4 a.m. and it has a huge audience there. It's I guess it's like coast to coast. People like to stay up and listen to weird stuff in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's strange, but
shows
like that. I'll tell Carmen to invite you on one of them, because UFO Undercover has different sets of rules. So the network is a very strange place. We have shows have guidelines, basically what they can get away with, what they can't. So, like News on the Flip Side in the chat, there is no guidelines. It's R rated, I guess, not because of any kind of sexual content or anything. It's just because of language and some of the topics are probably not for people under the age of maybe 30. I mean, just because they're serious topics, and some of them are just, they're not designed at it. And it always tells you something like it's where the insane come to learn or the insane come to rest. But News on the Flip Side actually does serious news. But UFO Undercover is 27 years old now. They broadcast to every country on the planet. It's not one country it doesn't go into. Matter of fact, right now it has about 26 listeners in North Korea. Don't know why, don't know who they are, don't know how it got in there, still don't. One of Michelle's shows, though, they pick her up in North Korea too. These shows are different because the Authors Quill is designed. First off, the day it's on is designed really more for arts than anything else.
Yeah.
Except for our last show, they're Indian witch doctors. We have two of them at the end of the night.
Well, these days you're not anybody if you don't have a podcast.
Yeah, you got to. And I mean, we've been around for, like I said, 27 years now, since 1999.
Wow.
So we've been podcasting. We started with nobody. You don't even know how we started. It was a nightmare. So all I can tell you, it was some nightmare days. Like, the technology was not what it is today. So right now we're on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple, Samsung, Google, and OSI TV in 4K, because people are telling me what's the titles is on his books back there. So when we give stuff away, you see this skull back here, the alien skull. There's stuff in his eyeballs that I ask people when we're live. If you want me to give you something, you got to tell me what's in his eyes. And you can't do it on if you're on YouTube or Rumble like that. You're not going to be able to see it. But if you're on the television side, on your big screen TV, and you got the 4K, you can see everything. They can even
I was just learned yesterday that more people right now, like, it used to be watching on the phone, you'd be able to, that's how people watching YouTube right now. more people are watching YouTube on TV screen than they are on phones now. It's become the new place for watching news,
Well, because
programming, and everything.
I mean, both my big screens have surround sound built into them, and then they have speakers around it. So when I'm listening to YouTube or anything, even when I'm listening to this, and matter of fact, like when I watched Preston that night, I was watching him with a 70-inch in the living room, which is nice for me because I can see every flaw anywhere if I want to write anything. Matter of fact, I called Michelle one night. I said, Michelle, are you getting a pimple? And she's like, what? That's how good you can see that 4K sees. It was right. I mean, it was right here. She's like, how the hell did you see? I said, 4K is just murderous. I mean, it really is. So some lady called in one night to tell me the different colors of my mustache. I was like, well, thank you for telling me that. I said, I think I can see it's right there. Just like, come on. Oh, man. No, Jesse, that is true. Jay was telling the truth. If my beard's not this color, it's the other color, that means I'm touring. That's all it means. If you see me with a full dyed beard, it means I'm touring.
Well, I was surprised that you have the reach that you do, just because, like you mentioned, it's about the arts and it's less internet rage. Everybody's like so like at each other's throats, and they can just see like we can have a nice debate even
we cheat because right now I think Michelle has 35 or 37 shows on the network, and a lot of them, like I said, do authors. So when we first designed the show, this show is really so we could start trying to sell some books, because other shows are hard to sell books on because the topics get intense. And some hosts get a little cranky if somebody says buy your book too many times. Unless they're a regular. And so this show was actually designed, come on, talk about your book, sell your book, tell people about your book, send it ahead of time, we'll be right there the whole entire time. And usually we'll put your link up so you can see it, like Preston's links in the scroll bar right now. We put those in there because it's just ways people can just find you or find writers of the future.
Exactly. Speaking of which, here's the most recent volume.
Oh, that's pretty. Who did the cover? Who did the cover?
We just got an amazing review from Kirkus, which was nice on the audiobook and the book itself. So we're very happy with that. And I just confirmed with the Library Journal.
What was his name? Who did the cover, John?
Ciarello.
Yeah, I never can pronounce his name.
Ciarello. He's one of our judges from Spain.
I just finished reading the latest volume. My favorite story was the second place winner. It usually is.
Yeah, see, I'm the same way.
Like the gold.
The ghost dog was just such
I love that. That was a fun
good
story.
One.
And
I
loved Canary as well.
These winners always ask
good stories. Some
really,
really good. They're always good. And if I don't like them, then I read them a second time and I realize, oh, okay, now I know where
it's a third.
I gotta say, so far, I think I've read 20 of their books so far, maybe 22 of them. And I enjoy the stories. I mean, I'm not always into the stories because it's not always stuff that I'm into, but I enjoy the stories, and I like the way they put them together because they kind of flow. They have kind of a little natural flow through the stories. Like this year, they had the 4 dragon stories.
There's never a dud.
No, there's never a dud. They're always good stories.
It's amazing. That's what I love about the selection process.
Because it's not like just you got all the judges, but you got one coordinating judge that's like the slush pile judge, if you will. But then that doesn't stop there. The boss, and then I had Katie Wentworth actually way back. Yeah, she was the gateway judge for me, and then she passed right after, I think, by one Writers of the Future, and then Dave Farland took over for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, like,
we have so many entries now. We have 4 first readers. They're all past winners, so they definitely have the mindset of writers.
Okay.
We have so many entries now. We got 4 first readers, and that funnels through Jody and then to all the other judges.
Yeah, and so you got multiple eyes, and again, they have different backgrounds themselves. Like and they mix them up. Do you still mix them up? Like the judges on the quarters, you never know who's judging you, ever.
Yeah, I know there's some people in the forum who are waiting right now to see if their finalist is going to win.
Judging going on right now for second quarter or for third quarter.
That was one of the most impressive parts. Was how willing the judges were to work with these people. Because when you first think of this, when I tell people this a lot of times, especially when I'm speaking to a college, they're always like, "Oh, well, it's for kids to enter." I said, "No." I said, "Kids do enter." I said, "But I have personally met winners from 16 to 17." They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I've met a 169-year-old, 17-year-old author at that point, And I
Yeah,
said,
there
I
was
met
one guy who won. I think he was like 19 or 18 or something.
Yeah. Oh, and that little girl from Spain was what, 16 or 15. She was a baby.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Is
We had
there
one
like
girl that won when she was a sophomore in high school, and she was, I don't really know what I want to do for my future. So it's like, we had TV booked for her. She declined. She's just, I'm not really sure. She came to the event. And then just like a month or two ago, there was a whole feature paper where she's now going to college. She got a scholarship and she's doing these amazing murals. And it talked about she got her first recognition when she won Illustrated the Future, a few years ago. So it's an amazing what it does to help give that confidence and launch the careers, because there's not a whole lot of sources of confidence building out there.
No, there's
Sources of confidence lessening.
Yeah, we're all suffering from imposter syndrome, so that helps to cure you of that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get going, guys.
Yeah, we got to get out of here. We're actually late.
overtime.
Yeah, Jay.
We had great
Wow.
It's so good to see you again, Megan, and for you too,
Yeah.
Preston.
Well,
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I start hosting again in 35 minutes.
Oh no.
I do two shows.
He's running all
shows on
night.
Saturday. And,
Yeah.
and Preston's always busy. He stays busy. He's like the rest of us. Anytime you got anything to do with ufology, it seems to consume all aspects of your life. Not exactly sure how, but it does. But we're going to get out of here. Okay, good. You can finish what you're saying.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me on. It has been an absolute honor. This is my first podcast, by the way.
That's good.
I've been doing this for like ever, and I've just been behind the scenes because I'm a tech writer for aerospace, and I got family court and just all this stuff going on. So yeah, I mean,
some
really
of my favorite things to read is geeky sci-fi, not science fiction, but science manuals from different parts of the military.
I still read the very first Writers of the Future volume, and I worked my way up to the last. It's kind of my go-to home place. I love them, and they're really just awesome.
Somewhere on the iCar website is the original blueprints for the TR3B that I got for Senator McDonald. It's he sent it to us, so we posted them. And nobody ever took them down. They're still there. They're still sitting up there. 5 pages worth. It's like, all right. This is a guy who was driving home in New Mexico. This is a guy in charge at the time, was a 25-year incumbent in charge of all the money going to the military. Was flying home when something buzzed his car, and it buzzed it so close that it pushed him out of the lane. So I kept getting this phone call from this guy saying, Senator McDonald would like to talk to you about something. And I kept blowing it off because I thought it was, just some crazy UFO person, just some nutter. And I went on for about 6 months, and all of a sudden I got a congressional ID and a driver's license thing, on a copy. I'm like, whatever. And then one afternoon I heard at my door, I go to the door, I thought it was Men in Black. These two guys in black suits, black glasses, big black stretch limo. I'm like, oh shit, what did I do? That's all I could think. He said, there's somebody in the car that'd like to talk to you. So I'm not getting in a car with you. It's not going to happen. And the guy popped open the door, and then when he did, I recognized. So I went and talked to him. And, I told him what I thought it was, and I told him how it worked. And he said, there's no way they could do that. I would know that it was happening. I said, I'm telling you what I got. That's what it is. It's a TR3 breed that they've been seen out there hundreds of times. So I didn't hear that about 6 months, and I got a phone call saying it was a kind of a short, nasty, not being mean to me, but just because he was mad when he found out. And then a couple months after that, I got a vanilla envelope about this thick shirt in my house with all kinds of shit. But I also have Class 10 security, so he couldn't get in trouble for it. But he was adamantly mad. Because, first off, this thing buzzed his car. So at this point, when he realized it was ours, he was double pissed. Because he didn't know about it. They were using his money, and it had the nerve to buzz his car. He was mad. He wanted to know who it was, how it was, what they were doing. You know what's funny about that? I remember for about 7 months, nobody's seen the TR3 anywhere. No one's seen any sightings. I think you shut the program down for a little while. I just think you walked in and said, really? And you're doing what without my permission? Oh, no, I don't think you are. Oh, no. What are you going to tell a 25-year incumbent senator that sits on the appropriation committee? That's not much you're going to tell him. He's going to be like,
well, I got to say goodbye.
Okay.
Get out of here, Preston. We're going to go.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again, Preston.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, no, you can catch Preston on Monday night. I think it's 9 p.m. It's he's second to last show. Yes, he is. I will ask Conrad to ask Megan to come on the other show when I don't know when we got to open it, but I'll give her a call. It's
Thank you very much, Megan. You're just as
Thank you.
beautiful as you were when I last saw you. So well
Thank
done.
you so much. I appreciate
burning
it.
my house
I
down.
put
Okay.
this up in the background just so that
Yeah, I
they
saw
can see.
that.
No, it's always good. There's so much stuff. ICAR has about we have 144,000 cases. These are cases that's been researched and investigated. All together, the organization has more than 400,000 cases coming out. We just get rid of anything that doesn't meet criteria that the organization has for sightings and contact and stuff like that. But I've given testimony to Congress twice. And in the skiff, no less, man. I was, as far as I know, I am the only person that gave testimony that asked him to call Quantico and bring a polygraph for him. I said, if I'm going to sit here for hours on end and give testimony, I want to be polygraphed because I don't want to be being second guessed the whole time I'm talking. So they put me in a polygraph. First day, 12 hours of testimony. First day. It was insane. Yes, Jesse, nothing I can talk about. Sorry. I don't make the rules, my friend. No, Nancy said that someone higher up in the government recommended me. That's all she said. She said who it was. Well, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people in the military. Some of the stuff I did put me in contact with a lot of, what's a nice word, shady people. Not shady like drug dealer shady, but shady like military industrial complex shady kind of people. Yeah. No, I can go to Area 51. They'd let me in. Yeah, they'd let me go walk right in. They're going to show me nothing. You know what they're going to show me? Oh, Mr. Joe, come get in the elevator. Oh, you want to go ahead and have lunch? You know, there's a cafeteria downstairs. Let's go to the cafeteria 80 floors down. And then they'll bring me over to the hangar with the big round hangar that goes all the way up to the sky. I say, look, haven't you seen this before? They're not going to let me see anything of any consequence, people. Anybody except for the president can go there. As long as you got a high clearance and you're a lifer thing, sign lifer thing, you can go. They don't let presidents go because they don't trust them. Like Reagan got Alzheimer's. You know, you never know. Obama might decide to start telling secrets. Joe Biden got Alzheimer's.
Like Kennedy was assassinated in Forrestal. Same thing. You know, he fell out of a not really fell. We think he was pushed.
That's the thing. They don't want when the powers to be want to disclose when they want to disclose. And it's always been the same thing. People always ask me, why don't ET disclose? Well, I said ET's already disclosed. ET's told everybody that they want to tell. Anybody who's contacted or related some way through the projects already know. So they don't have to tell them. The rest of y'all people are cannon fodder. They don't care if you know. And apparently our government doesn't care. Apparently our government doesn't care either. I mean, they're never going to tell us the truth. It's like this disclosure. This is great. And I'm happy to hear the government actually admit that something might be from another world. And I'm happy to hear NASA say, look, we might have found life in another world. But nobody's given us anything. They've given us gray, dusty pictures that show you nothing, flare videos that show you nothing. They tell you, oh, we know about 4 types of aliens, and then they give you the 4 types off the internet, which you don't want the ones visiting the planet. You're like, what the hell's going on here? You have people like Koresh saying, oh, well, they just fall out the sky, and we pick them up, and we pick up the crafts, and we pick up the aliens. And I'm thinking, really, they've been here 6, 7, 10, 15,000 years.
Well,
how many ships have they lost?
And you will learn some things.
Okay. Well, you see it should be right here where people could see it. Look at all the books up there. It could be back there with the Greek classics. That's all the Greek philosopher.
Yeah, like I said, he had his hand on all of those programs.
No, I remember somewhere, I forgot who it was that was telling me about it. It was one of Billy Meyer's friends. I don't think it was Michael Horn, but it was one of his friends that was telling me about the guy. And the problem with ufology is in general, it doesn't know how much you know. And if you know too much, everybody's just going to take half of what you say as truth, and the other half are just going to ignore.
Yep. And
it's a shame they do it like that, because nobody in this field wants to think that somebody might actually know more than the average person. And there are more people.
I'm actually getting that, honestly. I've been getting that, and it's weird to me when I don't know if it's a jealousy thing or what, but like there's several people that will start acting really weird, like family members or friends or people, and it's like it's just weird. It's like why can't you support like you've known me forever. I'm not an alien. I'm going to come out and talk about some of this stuff. And by the way, I did make sure I gave a disclosure to, you know, that there's a lot of aerospace personnel that have been kind of going missing. MIA, KIA, like they committed suicide, but it's like the 10 bullets to the back of the head kind of suicide.
Yeah.
And like when David Wilcock, he committed suicide, and then
that was crazy. David Wilcock, you know, I had known David on and off for 2 decades.
Yeah. And then his biographer. His biographer got it like a week before. And so I'm like, oh, great.
But it was the way he did it, like, look, I want you to know this is me doing this. It was almost like he had been programmed to walk out there and do it because
like a rehearse, like it's rehearsed or whatever.
Yeah, it was he gave you the sense that it was pre-programmed into his head to go out there and do it. It just, you know, I've known the guy, and it's not that I didn't know he had problems from time to time, because I did. He had some emotional problems, the kind of guy he was, but nothing that warranted suicide. And I mean, he just met this person he was with, and he was hanging out with this other person. I mean, he was, unless there was something that none of us knew about, it just didn't make sense.
What made me really nervous is because his biographer got it like a week prior, and I knew I was going to be coming on here because I had talked to John like a month ago about coming on here, and I'm like, well, I know E.T. Bill, he was like 94 when he finally passed. I think he literally just died because he was old, but I'm like, well, I'm the equivalent of that, like his biographer. And I'm like, well, okay, so let me make sure I give like this statement to people in that I know in aerospace and people that I'm like accountable to. And like I have a psychologist. I made sure I'm like, I am not suicidal, just letting you know, like I'm not afraid of heights, not about to fall out a window, not accident prone, not going to get into a car wreck. Like if you hear anything, like if I don't come into work, ask questions, you know, I just wanted to get that out there, but there's a lot of stuff that Bill knew he put into his book.
and well, it's good to do that because anytime we have a weird Men in Black thing or any kind of weird strange things like that, we always document it, and we always go on air and document.
Yeah, you got to be public.
Oh yeah,
I've learned just going through like the family court, which